The Speaker.
Let us pray. Almighty God, where you have called us to govern this province, we ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and that will promote the interest of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat u gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en al ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om al ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikelela lezwe letu na bantu balo, umusile ukulungo kwepondo letu. Kosi sikelela i Afrika, kina abantwana bayo, kokela inkokeli zayo, yeniki uxolo i Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. Please be seated. Order. Honourable members, before we proceed, I would like to remind the honourable members about some of the logistical arrangements. As has been our practice to date, honourable members will participate in the sitting of the House, both here in the chamber with the presiding officer and table staff and via Microsoft Teams. Our standing rules have accordingly been amended to accommodate such hybrid sittings of the House. Honourable members, the quorum requirements for the sitting of the House are provided for in the Constitution and the standing rules. Unless there is an indication of unanimous concurrence, voting will be confined to members present in the House and on the hybrid system who are entitled to cast their votes as per the ATC issued on the 11th of August 2020. Members present in the chamber and via Microsoft Teams have all the privileges and immunities imparted by law. Honourable members, if you are considered out of order by the presiding officer, your microphones will be muted and called to order. The Sergeant at Arms have recorded all members' attendance. Honourable members, in instances where these directives do not cover eventualities, the standing rules must apply, and in instances where the rules cannot be applied, the ruling by the presiding officer is final. Honourable members, the media have also been granted access to this MS Teams as guest of the WCPP. However, I wish to remind the members of the press that they may not use the chat room or speak or activate their cameras while the sitting is in progress. For the sitting, honourable members, language translation services are available in the chamber as usual and on Microsoft Teams via the respective channels. Honourable members, I wish to remind you that no interjections are permitted during these hybrid sittings, and to this end, I wish to draw your attention to Rule 40 of our standing rules. I recognise the Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I rise and move a motion that, notwithstanding the provisions of Rule 20, Sub-Rule 1, that precedence be given today for the matter of importance to be discussed.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chief Whip. Honourable members, are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objections. Agreed to. Honourable members, we will now deal with a matter of public importance as printed on the order paper in terms of Rule 143, and I recognise the Honourable Heron.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, it is said that the choices government make in compiling budgets reflect their values and aspirations. It is the Western Cape government's choice to cull thousands of teachers' posts because it would rather spend money dabbling in crime prevention. That's despite the fact that dealing with crime is a national government competency and the province's expensive dabbling to date has borne no fruit. But the province doesn't want to own its choice. It can't admit that teachers' jobs must pay for the theatre of provincial security, so it falsely blames unanticipated public sector wage increases for its shortage of money. And a quick check of the provincial budgets reveals the truth of these matters. First, the education and health services have been defunded by 2.7 billion rand since 2019 for a safety plan that has no impact on crime stats. The baseline in funding, the allocation to education from the provincial equitable share, was reduced to enable the province to spend 1.7 billion rand on its policing plan from 2019 to 2023, with the 2024 budget committing an additional 1 billion rand over the next 3 years. Second, the MEC for Education indicated in his 2024 budget speech that his department had a shortfall of 537 million rand at the end of last year as a result of public service wage increases. He did not say that this would result in a reduction in teaching posts. On the contrary, the provincial education budget was tabled as a balanced budget, which provided for an improvement of conditions of service based on CPI, which was at that time 4.9%, as well as pay progression of 1.5% in each year of the budget, plus a housing allowance and medical aid. The March 2024 public service wage agreement was settled at 4.7% from the 1st of April 2024, and the department budgeted a 6.1% increase for compensation of employees. Third, just 6 months ago when the budget vote was approved, the MEC disclosed no plans to cut educator posts. His budget actually planned to increase posts in the department by 1,018, from 46,392 to 47,410 employees from 2023 to 2024. Finally, it's important to note that 42.2% of all funds raised nationally are paid to provinces in the form of a provincial equitable share. Based on population size and growth, the Western Cape government complains that we don't get our fair share. Perhaps it should contract one of the teachers it wants to fire to come and school it on the difference between an equitable share and a proportional share. But 48% of the provincial equitable share is actually based on the size of the school-age population and the number of learners enrolled in public ordinary schools. Given that, you would think that the proportion of funding would require provinces to prioritise education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Heron. I recognise the Honourable Van Wyk.
Thank you, Speaker. Today's debate is not an easy one. I have no doubt that there will be those today who choose to use this debate as an attempt to score political points and who choose to grandstand in feigned outrage. But all of us must remain cognizant of the fact that our subject today is one which has far-reaching and serious consequences. We've arrived at a solemn moment, one which I believe all of us would have hoped to avoid. But we did not arrive here by chance, nor did we arrive here overnight. What we debate here today is not an isolated event, but the result of a national fiscal emergency which has far-reaching consequences across the entirety of our country. Last year, the then ANC-led national government agreed to a public sector wage increase which it knew it could not afford. In doing this, national government created a tidal wave, one which has rippled outward and begun to impact every province in our nation. In other words, last term's national government has left us holding the bill for what they themselves have bought. For almost a year, this government has been focused on building defences to this tidal wave. In the most recent budget cycles, cuts have been made to non-essential services wherever possible. The goal of these measures has been to ensure that our two largest frontline service delivery departments, health and education, remain insulated against the shortfall and continue their operations to help the people of our province. But we have now reached a point at which we cannot hold back the rising tide. We have cut to the point where we can cut no more. The WCED has done everything it can to limit the damage. They know that they cannot abandon learners, nor can they allow cuts to the feeding and learner transport schemes which provide food to 500,000 learners every single day and which transport almost 70,000 of them to schools which they otherwise would never have attended. No matter how bad the financial situation gets, we cannot leave our children hungry, nor can we let the underprivileged among them languish at home due to lack of transport, while their wealthier peers continue to receive a quality education. In an effort to keep our learners afloat, the WCED has made a drastic 2.5 billion rand cut to administration, curriculum and infrastructure, anything which does not directly affect teaching. They have frozen the recruitment of most public service staff, encouraged schools to convert contract appointments, and restricted the appointment of substitute teachers. In sessions of the committee which I chair, we have heard at length of the efforts made to hold back the flood. And still, despite everything, the WCED faces a shortfall of 3.8 billion rand. And to be abundantly clear, the reason for this is that national government bought something it could not afford and then funded only 64% of it. What we see before you is an exercise in damage control, and this department's valiant attempts to make the best of an impossible situation. Make no mistake, Speaker, this is a solemn moment, but one which was made inevitable the moment the previous national government agreed to that wage increase and made no effort to deal with the consequences of their own mistake. It is a moment that extends outside of our province to places like KwaZulu-Natal, where more than 11,000 educator posts are at risk. And it is a moment which can only be resolved by National Treasury coming to the table and paying the costs incurred at the national level. As we debate today, we must remain aware of perspective. In one day, our national government spends enough on debt servicing alone to employ 1,126 educators, 992 professional nurses, staff nurses, and nursing assistants, and 125 social workers for an entire year in the Western Cape. It is time for National Treasury to fix what it has broken. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Van Wyk. I recognize Honourable Nkondlo. Order, members. There's a member on the floor. Honourable Nkondlo.
Enkosi Somlom, Honourable Speaker, esteemed guests and fellow citizens, teachers and parents and education activists in the gallery, I greet you. Today we stand at a critical juncture, one that will shape the future of education in the Western Cape and extension, the future of countless young lives. The DA wants the entire country and citizens of the province to believe that they are in a corner with no option but to let go 2,407 teaching posts of existing educators who are on contract. This DA-led government speaks on both sides of the mouth to lure the poor and working class through their rhetorical claim of a pro-poor budget that was punted during elections here in this House. And now that they got the seats and are rulers of the Western Cape government and have got cushy positions in the Government of National Unity Cabinet, their true nature is nakedly displayed. The affected schools are predominantly low to no fee schools, whilst affluent schools with their reserves will be able to turn these contract posts to SGB funded ones and keep these teachers. Last year, with the implementation of Circular 0034 of 2023, we were assured by MEC Mainir that the goal was to avoid cutting teaching posts, a lie. Yet here we are today, facing an even more drastic measure. The MEC previously cited factors such as the 3 billion budget deficit and insufficient national funding for public sector. This provincial government is known for disinformation to manipulate public sentiment for their political expediency. The DA-led Western Cape government is not telling citizens that National Treasury fully funded the carry-through cost of the 2023-24 wage increases and also reversed the reductions on the wage bill for labor-intensive departments, which are mainly education, health in provinces, as well as police, defense, justice, home affairs and correctional services over the 2024 MTEF period. Therefore, there was no expectation for the 2023 wage agreement to contribute to any spending pressures in the 2024-25 financial year moving forward, as the carry-through costs were fully funded by National Treasury. What we are witnessing is a clear example of manufactured chaos of a double-tongued DA who speaks from both mouths. The DA-led Western Cape Education Department must tell the public that between 2019 and 2022, as they brag here, the WCED was notorious for its high under-expenditure, with over 792 million not spent and surrendered to the Treasury. A significant portion of this 176 million was intended for the compensation of employees. In 2022-2023 financial year, the school infrastructure budget under the Rapid School Building Program increased by 48% to 2.5 billion, despite returning 196 million to National Treasury allocated for school infrastructure.
Honourable Nkondlo,
By
your time has expired.
2023-24,
Please conclude.
The school infrastructure budget increased by 8% to 2.7 billion. The decision to cut 2,400.
Thank you very much, Honourable
It's not
Nkondlo.
just a policy
Thank
error,
you very
but it
much,
is
Honourable
a moral
Nkondlo.
failure.
Thank you. Please take your seat. Thank you very much, Honourable Nkondlo. I recognize Honourable Petrus. Honourable Petrus. Honourable Petrus, are you online?
Yes, Speaker.
There we go. I was just going to move on. Honourable Petrus, you may continue.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, members of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, and fellow citizens. I speak on behalf of the Patriotic Alliance to address the growing crisis that threatens the future of education in the Western Cape. The national fiscal emergency has resulted in severe budget cuts, and the real impact on education will be seen in the years to come. Honourable Speaker, the Patriotic Alliance believes that we must act swiftly to address this crisis. Therefore, we propose the following measures: that a multi-party committee appointed by the Premier engage with the national government to secure the necessary funding to restore teacher posts and prevent further job cuts. That resources be allocated in a way that prioritizes schools in previously disadvantaged communities. These schools are the most vulnerable to the effects of budget cuts. We must implement strategies to keep learners engaged and prevent dropouts. This includes providing additional support for struggling learners. To mitigate the effects of teacher shortages, we should leverage technology to enhance learning in understaffed schools. Honourable Speaker, the impact of the national fiscal emergency on post-provisioning in the Western Cape Education Department is a crisis that demands our immediate attention. The Patriotic Alliance is committed to fighting for the rights of our learners, supporting our teachers, and ensuring that our education system remains strong. We must act now to prevent a further decline in education quality, rising dropouts, and the deepening of inequalities in our province. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Petrus. I recognize the Honourable Lita Kong.
Thank you very much, Somlomo. Speaker, I would like to begin by condemning the DA Provincial Minister of Education and his dysfunctional department in putting the horse before the cart by prematurely announcing the cutting of teachers' posts of more than 2,400 as of January 2025. Speaker, the announcement was premature, and the modus operandi is to instill fear within society at large, while they also trying to control the wage negotiations between the national government and unions from outside. I mean, even National Treasury Speaker made it clear that the 2025-26 wage negotiations will only start in late September 2024. So it makes no sense to us for someone to go around instilling fear and creating chaos where the outcomes of the negotiations will only be announced at a later stage. Be it as it may, Speaker, if the DA end up having its way and cutting the teachers' post, it is mostly public schools from poor communities in townships and rural areas that will suffer the brunt of such decisions. The no-fee and partial fee-paying school will suffer as they will not have the financial muscle of creating the so-called SGB teachers post, while their quartile 4 and 5 counterparts will fairly relatively well in comparison. So in the end, this will create an unjustified inequality in the provincial education system, with those who have money thriving and the less fortunate perishing. The economic freedom fighter speaker will not allow for any cutting of teachers' posts in the province, as that will disadvantage the Black, Colored and Indian child in the Western Cape province. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Lita Kong. I recognize the Honourable Premier, Premier Windy.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and I want to thank the Honourable Member for bringing this debate to the House. It is really a critical and important debate for us to have. But before we get into the focus of the debate on the budget for teachers and why we got here and how we got here, I first just have to address his initial point on that, of course, trying to fight crime in this province is none of our business. We should leave it to SAPS. Well, quite frankly, we can't do that, and he knows very well that citizens in this province are suffering tremendously because of our lack of ability to deal with the murder rate and crime. Our children are being shot every single day. Our citizens are being murdered every single day, and of course, we must take responsibility for that. I have to say to him again, that if he keeps on saying there's been no difference, again, if you have a look, we were the worst 5 years ago, deaths per 100,000, the crime capital, we are no longer that. We've shifted that narrative, and in actual fact, he should go and have a word with the Delft residents. In the last 2 months, the difference month on month, minus 13% in murders, Harare minus 46% in murders, Khayelitsha minus 12% in murders, Mfuleni minus 32.7%, Nyanga minus 9.1%, in actual fact, a 6.2% down. And of course, the only province where we have these leap hotspots where you see, on average, a lesser climb in murder than anywhere else. But that's a subject for something else. I want to say that when we started this term of office, I kicked off by saying that we are in a very, very difficult financial position in this province. But let me start by going back to the previous term of office, and as early as 2020 we started writing to the presidency and we started writing to the finance minister, and these are all of the letters that we've been writing to them expressing the financial crisis that we find ourselves in this province. We've been highlighting it. And I'll just take you back to the intergovernmental dispute that we declared, because the Honourable Nkondlo, and I'm not allowed to say she lied to the House, but what she did do is misled the House.
Order, members. Is there a point of order, Honourable Said? What's your point of order?
I'm sure you've noticed I've not risen on the point of order since the start of the 7th administration. But I think... But I think on this particular one, I do need to. I think it is, unparliamentary for the Premier to point to the Honourable Nkondlo. We've just concluded Women's Month. That is intimidating. He must not do that. Thank you.
Order, members. Honourable members, can I remind all honourable members to please speak to the chair and not directly to a member. Honourable Premier, can you please speak to me?
Thank you very much, Speaker, and thank you to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition for that point of order. I shall not point at the Honourable Member, just raise a point that in actual fact she was misleading the House. She said it was fully funded. Well, it actually wasn't. It was only funded to the tune of 64%. And of course, what that led to was last year an in-year cut of 1.1 billion rand. Now that 1.1 billion rand has to come from somewhere.
Order.
It has to come from somewhere. So let's actually go back and have a look at how we find ourselves in this position. Now, we know that we have a debt in our country.
Honourable Premier, please take your seat. Honourable members, we are dealing with a matter on the order paper in terms of Rule 143, which is a matter of public importance. There's a different process. This is not an ordinary debate or ordinary subject for discussion. This is a matter of public importance. Can I please ask that you allow the citizens of this province to hear the inputs in terms of Rule 143? That's why we have allowed, or I've allowed this debate to happen, because it's in the interest of the citizens of this province. I understand that interjections and heckling is allowed, but you are creating an environment where the citizens cannot hear the inputs by the various speakers on the speakers list. I please ask that you work with me. Honourable Premier, my apologies, you may continue.
Thank you very much, Speaker. How we got here was mismanagement of our budgets in South Africa by the ANC over the last term and a half. So if we have a look at the last term and a half, this graph shows you funding and underfunding. And guess who was funded versus underfunded? The funding only went to higher learning, social net, in other words, social grants, and bailouts. But I'll come to the bailouts shortly. Underfunding of 139 billion. This is in human settlement, public transport, basic services. Underfunding of community development, I said 139 billion. Underfunding of policing, community safety, policing, but the underfunding of education year after year after the year to the tune of 80 billion rand, while we funded SOE bailout. In other words, we rewarded bad management of SOEs to the tune of 500 billion rand. 500 billion rand went to the bailout of SOEs and not to education and not to health and not to policing. Do you know that there's a risk in this province, Speaker, of 2,500 posts in the teacher space? Do you know that there are 11,000 policing posts too few in this province? 11,000. We know that nearly 1,000 nurses' positions couldn't be filled last year. Why? Because of this problem, the total underfunding of education across South Africa, not just in this province, but across South Africa. We also know that the last time the census helped us adjust our budget was in 2011, the 2011 census, and in 2013-14 there was an adjustment to our budget where we get 10% of the allocation. We know that we're the fastest growing province in South Africa. We're the third most populous province in South Africa. In other words, the third most people, but we get the fifth most money. So that we do not get our fair share of the budget. The people of this province, our teachers, we do not get our fair share. It is kept and given to the wrong thing, like debt servicing costs and like bailouts of bad management in our SOEs. But you know what, Speaker? It is not only in this province. It is not only in this province that education and our educators are at risk. Think about the 11,092 educators at risk in KwaZulu-Natal right now. Or think about how other provinces budget. And the way they budget, they say there's going to be no risk to teacher posts, but we don't have enough money. We're going to run short of money this financial year. I'm thinking about the Eastern Cape. Now they're going to run out of about 600 million rand this year. So guess what happens? The last 3 months of the year, the teachers just won't get paid. They just won't get paid. The nurses won't get paid. People have to bring their own food to the hospital. They have to bring their own sheets. That is the consequence of the kind of ANC budgeting that we've been dealing with for the last term and a half. It is totally unacceptable. And each province has these problems. Each province. But there's only one province that has the audit outcomes, the good governance systems, and that's why we put the warnings out. We show where the cuts are going to come, and we are going to fight to the very end to make sure that we get every cent that's due to us. We want our fair budget, we want our fair share, so that we can employ more teachers, not less. We need more teachers in our education system, not less. We want our fair share to enable to do that. Look at the current wage negotiation at 12%. We have a 0.4% GDP growth rate. Come up from a 0.1, but it's not even at 1%. But we're sitting with SALGA negotiations that just in the city of Cape Town is going to have to find another 2 billion. Where does that come from? The citizens. We've got, at the moment, we're sitting with a 12% suggested increase for the next budget. We couldn't fund the last over-inflation rate budget. Why are we not even starting as a baseline on what inflation is? Because we've got no growth. What happens? We get worse off. Now, guess what? The real warning is being IMF'd. If the International Monetary Fund comes into South Africa because we cannot afford, we're going bankrupt, we can't afford to pay our loans, if that happens, well, jeepers, then you will see real cuts happening across the board in our country. We cannot afford this kind of budget increase through these crazy wage negotiations. We should baseline it at inflation, if not less. But, Speaker, in this province, we run it properly. We have a full track record of all of our letters, all of our pointing out with data why we should be getting a fair share. We are going on the 2nd of October. Minister Bartman, who will be following up on this debate, which will give you detail into our disputes and where we'll be fighting. We will fight for every single nurse, for every single teacher, for every single police officer, because we believe in the citizens of this province. The opposition parties here, I have not seen one word.
Order, members. Premier, please take your seat. Honourable members on my left-hand side, there's a continuous running commentary from my left-hand side. Can I please ask that there's a member on the floor, and I'm on the floor now. Honourable Premier, my apologies, you may continue.
Thank you, Speaker. I'll speak with a much lower tone, but if they start to raise objections, I will raise my voice above those objections so that people can hear what I have to say. But we will go into this budget process. We will make sure we are continually fighting for you, the citizen. That's what this is about. Not one of these political parties in this House who the citizens voted for have stood up and said, we are going to fight for our fair share in this province. We're going to fight for our citizens in this province to make sure that our teachers get paid, to make sure that we can grow our teacher numbers. Not one of them are fighting for the citizens of this province. They decide to make this into a political fight when this is actually about our province and our fair share of the budget. So I will tell you, Mr. Speaker, that this side of the House, we will fight for our teachers. We will fight for our nurses and our doctors. We will fight for those police officers that we are due in this province. We will fight for every single state employee to make sure that we can grow our support of services to the citizens, because ultimately we will fight for you, the citizen, in this province. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier. Order, members. I recognise Honourable Jacobs.
Thank you, Speaker. Greetings to all. Let me greet the Aboriginal. Aites. Here we go. Speaker, you know when we go by the he say, she say, what happened to the government of national unity? Anyway, the NCC rises that this issue is of great concern. Speaker, for many years the DA-led provincial government placed the shortages of funds on the doorstep of the ANC, the majority party in the government. Now, Speaker, the government of national unity now has a DA Minister of Education, and the proposed budget cuts now are even bigger, higher than before. Is this GNU a sinking ship? How do you rescue South Africa if you can't even rescue education? I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Jacobs. Order, members. I recognise the Honourable Marais.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, am I audible?
You are indeed audible.
Thank you. Speaker, the losing approximately 2,400 teaching posts is tantamount to sending our education system into an ICU. Whatever progress we made in the since COVID will be completely wiped out. The simple truth is that the quality of education will effectively diminish with less teachers than what we had in 2021. But the root cause of the national fiscal emergency dilemma was the constant bailing out of failing state-owned enterprises, fueled by these three nemesis, namely corruption, cadre deployment, and the racially based black economic empowerment policy. Speaker, in concluding, the education system will be on a life support in 2025, and we hope this is not a rehash of the old, outdated right-sizing and downsizing policies of our previous government. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Marais. I recognize Honourable Syed.
Honourable Speaker, today we gather to confront a critical issue that affects the future of our children, the well-being of our educators and the strength of our economy. This DA provincial government's decision to cut nearly 2,500 teaching posts from January next year. This is not just about budget, Speaker. It is an attack on education in the Western Cape, especially for those in disadvantaged communities. I want to extend my deepest sense of gratitude to the Honourable Heron of the Good Party for ensuring that this urgent debate is taking place today. Some are quick to lay the blame solely on national government cuts, budget cuts, but this does not survive contact with the truth, Speaker. We are aware of Premier Wendy's decision to divert funds from health and education. And yes, we will remind him of that, to prop up a failed safety plan. Yes. We have my colleague, the Honourable MEC Mania's failure to use 829 million rand of the allocated education budget between 2019 and 2023. Money that was sent back to National Treasury instead of being used to uplift our schools. This is on top of the money that is wasted on the School Evaluation Authority, which I'm glad that SATU basically opposed a few years ago, and the Back on Track program. This crisis did not arise overnight, Honourable Speaker. The Western Cape's underfunding of education has been consistent for years. Only 37% of the provincial budget goes to education, compared to a national average of 41%. Worse still, just 72% of the education budget is dedicated to compensating staff, well below the national average of 76%. These numbers tell the story of a province that has neglected its teachers and children. The consequences of this chronic underfunding are clear. Even 6 years ago, nearly half of our grade 3 learners were in overcrowded classrooms with over 40 students. Today, some schools face classes of 50 or even 60 students. This is unacceptable and will now sadly get worse. The impact will especially be devastating for under-resourced schools where students need more attention, not less. Class sizes will balloon, individual support will diminish, and the strain on educators will be unbearable. And let's not forget, education is the most powerful tool that we have to combat youth unemployment. While overall youth unemployment sits at over 40%, among graduates it is just 9%. Education is not just about personal empowerment or social welfare. It is the foundation for a thriving economy and the key to breaking the cycle of poverty and inequality. Let me be clear, Speaker, because people are talking about the blame game. While we understand the need to try and balance the books, this cannot come at the expense of our children, our economy, and South Africa's future. The statement of intent from the Government of National Unity is clear on this matter. Supporting our young people through education is the single most important thing we can do for our country. And this message goes to national government as well. The ANC stands in firm opposition to these reckless cuts, and we stand in solidarity with civic movements, trade unions, and community organizations who are protesting these decisions and are present with us in the gallery today. We fully support Teacher Union SATU in their dispute against the Western Cape Education Department, and I'm glad that our worker leaders can see firsthand the disdain with which this government and the Premier of this province thinks of workers. They say, the Premier says here that he's fighting for workers, but proudly wants to fire the same workers. Our children deserve better. They deserve classrooms where they can learn and thrive, not crowded spaces that stifle their potential. Education is not a privilege, it is a fundamental right. And we will not stand by while this provincial government, or any government for that matter, erodes the very foundation of our future. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Syed. I recognize the Honourable Minister Baartman.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker and esteemed guests. South Africa is currently facing a difficult fiscal environment, and the Western Cape, despite its sound fiscal management, has not been immune to these pressures. This includes high national debt costs, rising inflation, and impact of public wages on provinces. Speaker, I brought my 2024 budget book with me so that I'm able to just accurately quote the particular figures. Out of an 84 billion rand provincial budget, the Department of Health and Wellness receives 30.4 billion rand, and the Western Cape Education Department receives 30.4 and 30.8 billion rand, totaling 61.2 billion rand, or 72.85% of the total provincial budget. We have actually, when you look at the budget book, added extra money from the Provincial Reserve Fund, our own provincial money, to the equitable share portions of education and health to increase the particular budgets. And when you look at the budget book, the education budget and personnel numbers increase year upon year upon year. The national government's decision in 2023 to sign an unfunded multi-year wage agreement has left all 9 provinces with a massive financial shortfall. In the Western Cape, this amounted to 1.1 billion rand, mainly affecting the Department of Health and Wellness and the Western Cape Education Department. The WCED currently has the weight of the 36% budget shortfall, which equates to an unfunded 3.8 billion rand over the next 3 years. The national government's decision to only fund the 64% of this wage agreement has forced the Western Cape into a position where it needs to decide between a bad situation and an even worse situation. Despite our best efforts, including the WCED's 2.5 billion rand in cuts in administration, curriculum and infrastructure, we still face a massive budget deficit. Without intervention or financial relief from national government, the WCED is confronted by a situation where we may be forced to reduce the basket of educator posts by 2,407 in the coming year. I want to state this clearly. The reduction in the number of teachers needs to be an absolute last resort. An absolute last resort if the national government decides not to fully fund teacher salaries, and I'll get to the responses from national government a little bit later. The Western Cape government understands the important role that our teachers play, not only in sharing knowledge, but also in building and molding the futures of our children and communities. Many of us in this house today are here because of the product of teachers who've poured into us and shaped us, and we're going to work tirelessly to avoid these cuts. However, national government's failure to fully fund the wage agreement has left us with few options. And the Western Cape is not alone in facing these financial challenges. Provinces across the country, such as KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, and Gauteng, are all grappling with similar and possibly bigger shortfalls. This wage agreement has placed every province in an untenable situation. But the Western Cape has not sat back. I met with the National Minister of Finance, Minister Godongwana, on 17 July to raise the fiscal emergency faced by education in the province and request the National Treasury's commitment to fully fund the public wages for all provinces. On the 1st of August, I followed this up in writing with a letter highlighting the exact financial impact this will have on the basket of posts in education. On the 6th of September, I received a response from the National Minister of Finance. His letter was dated the 4th of September, and I would like to quote from his letter, his response to the Western Cape. Quote, furthermore, the ongoing negotiations regarding the basket of posts between the Department of Education and Labour and the impact of the 2,407 posts, which will result in a shortfall in the 25, 26 and 26, 27 have been noted. These negotiations must consider the current fiscal constraints, and all commitments by the Western Cape Department of Education should be managed within the allocated baseline, as no additional funding will be provided given the challenges indicated above. That is the response from the National Minister of Finance on the 6th of September. This is why, Speaker, tomorrow at the first National Budget Council for the upcoming national budget process, I will be continuing to lobby Minister Gorongwana and the 8 other provincial finance MECs to ensure that frontline services like our teachers, like our nurses and doctors are protected first within the national budget process. The National Treasury should further consider reviewing conditional grants across the board to make sure that we increase the provincial spending envelope, which according to their budget circular have indicated to all provinces that it must remain the same. The answer cannot be that we must choose between teachers and nurses and doctors. It cannot be the answer. We will continue to fight for teachers and learners alike. Despite the strained fiscal environment, the Western Cape government has consistently worked to deliver in the best interests of our teachers and our learners. And in the national context, where many provinces and the national government have faltered, we have continued to prioritize the needs for our learners and teachers. I've mentioned the increase on the budget as well as the personnel numbers, and just for the reference for the Hansard, you can find that on pages 178 and 200 of the provincial budget book. Through the Back on Track program, the Western Cape has further been able to reverse the learning losses caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. And thanks to the input from our dedicated teachers, this year alone will provide 338,000 learners with the additional support they need to catch up and improve their learning outcomes. We also embarked on an ambitious infrastructure program, the Rapid School Build Initiative, as supported by the National Treasury currently as well, to expand access to education by building schools faster and more efficiently than ever before. And this year, 860 million rand has been allocated to building new schools in the areas most in need, ensuring that even amidst this crisis, we continue to look ahead to secure the future. And just a note, Speaker, we even used some of our provincial money in terms of infrastructure in the past year. To avoid cutting teachers' posts, we have already frozen the recruitment of most public service staff, encourage school to convert contract appointments, and restrict the appointment of substitute teachers. However, Speaker, this is a national emergency and it requires a national solution. We cannot solve this on our own, and together with national government, we must step up and request National Treasury to fulfill their obligation to fully fund public wages for all 9 provinces and save teachers' posts. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I recognise the Honourable Heron.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, this is a provincial emergency requiring a provincial response from the provincial government that's got 62 billion rand allocated to it in this financial year to address services that the people of the Western Cape need. We all know that there have been budget cuts across the country, but this government must make a choice between funding something that's not working, like a policing plan, and funding school teachers. And it's made the choice to rather fund something that's not working than save school teacher posts. And the Premier can quote stats, but the stats speak for themselves. This project of Western Cape Safety Plan has been going for 6 years. In the first quarter of 2020, there were 797 murders. The next year,
Order, members.
The next year, there were 992 murders in the province. The next year, in the first quarter of 2022, there were 994. In 2023, there were 939. In 2024, there are 1,138. The number of murders has gone up every year since this plan was introduced, as has the rate of murder gone up every single year since this plan was introduced. This government can make better choices, and that's all we're asking them to do.
Order.
To choose between policing, defunding education and health to fund this policing plan that's not working, or to look at other areas in their budget where they can cut back to find a minuscule amount of money relative to the large budget to fund these teachers' posts. They could, for example, reduce the 5 billion rand that has been allocated over the next 3 years to boosting safety interventions. They could reduce the 21.8 billion rand that has been allocated over the next 3 years to fund innovation and governance culture. They can cut from those kinds of projects in order to save teachers. But I guess what we really need is an explanation. Did this government deliberately table an inaccurate budget before the elections to mislead voters ahead of the election? Or do we have political leaders who do not understand their own budget? Whichever it is, it's undeniable that this government has made unbelievably uneducated
Honourable
choices
Heron, your time
with
has
its funding
expired.
allocations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Heron. Order, members. Order. In terms of Rule 143, I now honourable members on both sides of the House, I'm on the floor. Are you finished, honourable members? Can we continue? Honourable members, in terms of 143, I now afford the Minister of Education, if he so wish, Minister, an opportunity for 15 minutes in terms of the rules to respond. Order, members, I've deliberately quoted the rules because it's the first for this term of office, so that I want to take you with me on this journey of making sure that we hold the decorum of the House. Honourable Minister, you have 15 minutes to respond if you so wish.
Thank you, Speaker. On Monday, the 2nd of September 2024, I visited one of our high schools to engage with the staff about the work that the school was doing to improve learning outcomes. During my visit, the principal informed teachers that the school would unfortunately lose teaching posts for the 2025 school year. It was clear from the conversation that the impact of losing posts would be significant. I could see that teachers were concerned and uncertain about how this would affect their learners. And I could see some of the teachers looking around the room thinking, will it be me? I realized that this will be a very difficult time for our teachers. Our teachers take on so many roles above and beyond being a teacher. They are also parents, they are protectors, they are social workers, they are caregivers, and they are confidants to our learners. Class sizes and workloads will increase, and the uncertainty and anxiety will take a personal toll on our teachers and on their families. I also recognize the pressure that the decision has placed on our principals, who will be responsible for managing the impact of the reduction in posts at their schools. The reduction in posts will mean that some contract teachers will not be reappointed after their contracts end on the 31st of December 2024, and some permanent teachers will be asked to move to another school where there is a suitable vacancy. We understand that this will result in difficult choices for our schools. It will increase class sizes, and it will negatively affect teaching and learning in the Western Cape. But Speaker, we must all understand that we are in this position because the national government did not fully fund the 2023 multi-year public service wage agreement. We were shortchanged by national government, receiving only 64% of the cost of the nationally negotiated agreement, leaving the province to fund the remaining 36%. Despite implementing drastic 2.5 billion rand in budget cuts, including on administration, on curriculum, and on infrastructure, we still face a 3.8 billion rand budget shortfall over the next 3 years. The situation is critical, which is why we have taken drastic action to cover the massive budget shortfall. We risk, of course, compromising our ability to pay for daily operating expenses like school feeding, learner transport, and transfers to school. The National Treasury knew exactly what their decision would mean for education in our country. In the medium-term budget policy statement for 2023, the National Treasury stated that their decision could lead to larger class sizes and higher learner-teacher ratios, possibly resulting in weaker educational outcomes. Speaker, we are not alone in facing this fiscal emergency. Other provinces are in the same, if not a worse situation. You don't need to take my word for it. Take the word of the KwaZulu-Natal Education MEC, Sipho Glemuka, who said in the Sunday Times in the past weekend, and I quote, "The department is left with little to no funding for the payment of fixed operational costs, municipal accounts, payments to suppliers within 30 days, procurement of learner support material, and affecting transfer payments to schools. We are not alone, but we have been open and honest about the challenges we face and about what the decision by the national government will mean for our schools and for our teachers and for our children across the country." Speaker, the decision to reduce the basket of posts was not taken lightly. To deal with the 3.8 billion rand shortfall, we would have to hollow out our non-personnel spending to become a department that only transfers salaries and does not offer any support to our teachers, to our learners, and to our schools. So we made some clear decisions on what spending we needed to protect in the face of this massive budget shortfall. Firstly, we agreed that we would protect schools for learners with special education needs from the reduction in posts. These are our most vulnerable learners and require extra care and support from our department. Secondly, we agreed that we would not cut funding to school feeding or learner transport. We cannot have learners go hungry or be unable to get to school. Third, we agreed that we would not cut the funding that our schools receive to pay their daily expenses. Schools rely on this funding to pay for everything from water to lights to stationery. We cannot have a situation where schools cannot write exams because they cannot afford paper, or have their electricity disconnected because they can't pay the bill, or cannot afford cleaning products to clean children's bathrooms. Now, Honourable Speaker, the Honourable Brett Heron claims that we are defunding education in the Western Cape. Now, if that is his claim, how does he explain that education now has the largest budget in the provincial government? How does he explain that we have added 6.39 billion rand to the education budget baseline over the past 3 financial years? How does he explain the fact that we have implemented the biggest learning recovery program in the country? How does he explain the fact that we have added over 1,800 teaching posts in schools in the greatest increase in at least a decade? And how does he explain the fact that we are building more schools faster than ever before with our rapid school build program? No, the facts demonstrates that education is clearly a key priority.
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. My apologies. Honourable Masipa, is that a point of order?
Yes, Speaker, Honourable Speaker.
What is your point of order?
My point of order, Speaker, is that the Honourable Member Brett Heron is running commentary while the Speaker is on the floor. Can you rule on that one, Honourable Speaker?
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. That is firstly not a point of order. I will maintain the decorum of the House. I do not need any assistance from the floor. Honourable members, can I please ask that you allow can you allow the member on the floor an opportunity to respond? As I indicated in the beginning of this debate, this is a matter of public importance in terms of Rule 143. Under normal circumstances, I will allow a lot more latitude for interjections, but because of the nature of this subject in front of us, I do think that we should allow the members of the public that is sitting in the gallery and the members of the citizens that is watching this debate the opportunity to listen and to hear the input by the Minister. I would also like to remind the honourable members that in terms of the rule, in terms of Rules 143, subsection 3, the Minister has the opportunity to respond for 15 minutes. I have a duty to protect the Minister and provide the Minister an opportunity to respond. So can I please ask members that you please work with me? And Honourable Minister, my apologies for the interruption. You may continue.
Thank you, Speaker. I am in fact listening to the Honourable Brett Herron's running commentary, and once again, he is wrong. He claims that the success behind the Rapid School Build program is as a result of additional BFI funding, which he does not seem to realize will only be allocated in this year's medium-term budget. The fact is, Speaker, the fact is that education is clearly a priority for the provincial government. Again, equally, how does the Honourable Brett Herron explain the even greater budget for shortfalls in other provincial education departments? And how does he explain the headline in today's Witness, which screams, "No funds to absorb KZN's unemployed teachers"? The Honourable Brett Herron was clearly listening with his mouth and not his ears when I delivered my budget speech earlier this year, because in that budget speech, in that budget speech, I warned about the budget blow. I said that we would be forced to implement cost containment measures, including building fewer schools and employing fewer teachers. And I went on to say that the budget blow would put pressure on our schools and on our teachers. The Honourable Brett Herron seems to be completely oblivious to the facts, but also oblivious to the national fiscal emergency, to the cause of the national fiscal emergency, and to the effect of the national fiscal emergency on all provincial education departments. Honourable Speaker, it is time for him to wake up and understand that we are in a critical situation which affects our learners, which affects our teachers, and which affects our schools. It's time to get serious, which is why I am doing everything I can to fight for our teachers in the Western Cape. I've written to the National Minister of Basic Education, Siviwe Gwarube, outlining in detail the severe impact that the national government's decision is having on our province and on our schools. I've met with the Deputy Minister of Finance, Asher Sarupin, to brief him on the severity of the situation. I've briefed the Council of Education Ministers in detail on the budget shortfall our department is facing and on the impact this will have on teaching and learning. We've participated in a special Council of Education Ministers meeting under the leadership of the Minister of Basic Education, Siviwe Gwarube, to discuss the impact of the fiscal emergency and the failure to fully fund the wage agreement. And we follow up with a special Council of Education Ministers meeting next week with a view to all the provinces and national ministers working together to engage with National Treasury. And then, Honourable Speaker, I have to ask, what is the Honourable Brett Herron doing? Well, what I would expect is for him to support our fight for teachers and to support our fight for education. But instead, he chooses to fight those who fight for our teachers and fight those who fight for education. It's time to get serious. to stop indulging in political theatre and start fighting for education and fighting for teachers. We find ourselves, Speaker, at a critical point. We find ourselves at a critical point. We have to decide as a country, once and for all, whether basic education is actually a priority for South Africa. In the past, when it came to a choice between protecting our children's education and bailing out corrupt state-owned enterprises, the previous administration made the wrong choice every time and bailed out corrupt state-owned enterprises. That is in the past. So let us now dedicate ourselves to a greater cause, which is we must work together to ensure that basic education is at the center of the economic growth agenda and not relegated to the welfare agenda. And because basic education is at the center of the economic growth agenda, we must work together to ensure that it is at the center of the Government of National Unity's agenda. So, Speaker, I invite the political leaders in this House, the teachers' unions, the activists and the parents to fight alongside us rather than against us for basic education, for our teachers, so that together we can deliver quality education for every child in every province in South Africa. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Order, members. Order. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, that concludes the debate on this subject. We now move on to interpellations as printed on the question paper in terms of Rule 197, and I recognise the Honourable Minister of Education, Minister Mania.
Thank you, Speaker. The Western Cape Education Department is committed to supporting learners with special needs in mainstream schools. The Western Cape Education Department currently accommodates a total of 17,323 learners with special education needs in various mainstream environments across the province. These learners are supported in one of three mainstream environments: public ordinary schools, full service schools, and of course schools with support classes. The learners' support needs are identified following the screening, identification, assessment and support process, which is an important part of the referral pathway in the Western Cape Education Department, to ensure that appropriate support and interventions are provided. The Western Cape Education Department is of course committed to providing support to all learners with special needs. To achieve this, the department employs a structured approach that includes the following key strategies: screening, identification, assessment, and support. This process, of course, identifies and addresses special needs, while also enabling schools to detect barriers to learning and provide interventions. The inclusive education framework, of course, learners with special needs are integrated into mainstream education environments and provided with support. Assessment and accommodation, additional time or alternative formats for assessment are provided for learners with special needs for equitable participation in assessments. And of course, we have our inclusive support plans, where each learner with special needs is assigned an inclusive support plan which outlines the specific support required. We have our full service schools and support classes, our specialized support services, our teacher training and capacity building, which includes ongoing professional development provided to help teachers support learners with special needs, and of course, collaboration and partnerships. The department collaborates with parents, with caregivers and external specialists to provide a holistic support system for learners. We are committed to these services while we acknowledge the challenges of consistently meeting every learner's needs due to the limitations in resources, staffing, and infrastructure. We will continue to fight for the funding to ensure that all learners in our province can receive quality education.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable Heron.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for the answer. I mean, the question and the interpellation was posed, not out of nowhere. It was posed out of concerns raised with us about the special needs learners and the experience of their parents and of teachers, especially teachers that are in mainstream schools and children who are in mainstream schools where they have special needs or been identified with special needs. Students with disabilities in this province obviously have a right to an education, and those standards are set out in policies and law. And as I indicated, we have received numerous complaints from concerned parents and community members over the education standards that these children face, especially those that are in mainstream schools. And we're basically failing these pupils or these learners. The education they're receiving is not anywhere near any academic standard and leaves these students unemployable due to the lack of employable skills. And the final guidelines for special needs education are clear on this matter, as the Minister would know. We must not only ensure that these students have the necessary material, but they also have the content presented in a way that is adapted to suit their needs. The adaptation to help students prepare for the real world is not being adhered to in this province for these 17,000 odd learners. In fact, concerned teachers are saying to us, and they're referring to their schools as, and I quote, over-glorified daycares. The students are not toddlers, obviously, and this administration must be held accountable for the way that their education is being handled in this province. What are the alternative courses provided for these students to aid them in their futures? The required alternative courses of woodwork, plumbing, or hairdressing, amongst a whole lot of others that are in the policy, are not offered to these learners, despite an education policy requirement that they are offered to them. And with a failing curriculum and resources, can we really be surprised when we see research papers such as Barriers to the Employability of People with Disabilities in South African Public Service, highlighting the marginalization of special needs students in the Western Cape? And this research is from 2023, so it's not outdated and old. And as a community and as a legislature, we must acknowledge that this marginalization is real. If these students enter the job market with no employable skills and no national academic certificate, we're leaving them to drown in the current unemployment epidemic facing our youth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honourable Heron. I now see the Honourable Van Wyk.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. It goes without saying that providing quality education to learners with special needs remains a vital part of any education department's core mission. And I'm glad to see the WCED and Minister Mania continuing to take the issue seriously. As many of us are aware, the Western Cape produced South Africa's highest ranked matric candidate with special needs last year. And my hope is that this year we'll see similar sterling results. However, this sitting has seen a debate on the reduction in the number of teaching posts in the Western Cape and the national government created circumstances which have forced us to make this happen. With this in mind, I would like to ask the Minister to explain to us what his department is doing to support these learners in special needs schools and what impact the reduction in the basket of posts will have on that support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honourable Van Wyk. I see the Leader of the Opposition, Honourable Syed.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the data on this particular matter, as the Honourable Heron has pointed out, reveals both progress but also significant challenges in the provincial government's commitment to inclusive education. While the province has indeed made strides in integrating learners with disabilities into mainstream schools, significant gaps remain Honourable Deputy Speaker. The data shows that universal access for 5 to 6-year-olds stands at 66.40%, for 7 to 15-year-olds at 93.10%, and alarmingly, only 55.90% for the 16-year age gap. 16-year age gap, Honourable Deputy Speaker. 16 to 18, sorry. This drops in accessibility for older learners with disabilities is deeply concerning. The challenges faced by these learners are multifaceted, from physical barriers such as inadequate infrastructure, like the absence of wheelchair ramps, to a lack of tailored support and resources in mainstream classrooms. These obstacles prevent full participation in our education system. The Honourable Mania must tell us what specific hindrances are impeding universal access for the 16-year-old age group, 16 to 18-year-old age group. How does the department plan to address the infrastructure deficits and ensure that schools for special need learners are equipped to provide the necessary support? Are there any urgent programs in place to tackle these barriers? I thank you.
Thank you so much. I see the Honourable Heron.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the problem with the integration of special needs learners into mainstream schools appears to be that those schools are not adequately prepared or resourced in order to provide the educational needs that are specific to those special needs children. And anecdotally, the stories we're hearing is that children are simply bumped up from one grade to the next without any outcome of their education in the grade that they've been bumped up. And that's why teachers are saying that we are basically glorified daycare operators or professionals, because those mainstream schools are not capacitated or resourced in order to provide the niche and the unique education, address the unique education needs of those children. There are also complaints that, like in many sectors of our society, poor and communities with people of colour have different standards for their education and resources. We receive complaints that special schools in higher income areas not only have more resources, but they also hold their students to the correct standard that is in the national policy, grading and working with these students personally to find their niche and make them employable or skilled. And meanwhile, for thousands of learners dumped in mainstream schools, students with special needs are ignored, wrongly assessed, and under-resourced. And this leads to those students with special needs having to switch between languages to learn, being wrongly assessed and transferred, leaving with a lack of personal tutorage and no alternative skills to learn. There's simply no justice here. And this government is failing some of the most vulnerable citizens of our province. And we owe the students and the parents of children in this province with special needs a just and equal education, and we ask the Minister to look into what is happening with special needs students and their education in this province. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I see the Honourable Minister, David Mania.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I wish to reiterate, of course, that the Western Cape Department remains committed to supporting all our learners, especially our learners with special needs, to ensure that every learner gets access to quality education. I would like to thank the Honourable Brett Heron for his interest and his focus on learners with special needs. He spoke of concerns raised by parents and concerns raised by teachers. And I would appreciate it if he would be prepared to share those concerns, to share the concerns of parents and of teachers, so that we can look into the specific cases and work together to ensure that those learners receive the support that they need. The Honourable Van Wyk asks about the impact of the reduction in basket of posts on special schools. We have, as I mentioned in my speech, taken steps to ensure that the basket of post reduction will not affect special needs learners in our special needs schools, precisely because our special needs learners are the most vulnerable learners and require the most support from our department. The honourable member also asks what we are doing to support learners with special needs in our special schools. I'm very proud of the fact that this year we are providing an additional 71.4 million rand to improve our support, particularly to learners with autism spectrum disorder. And we are providing funding for learners with profound intellectual disabilities with an additional 70.4 million rand allocated to support these vulnerable learners. We have completed 2 special needs schools this year and have been adding dozens of extra classrooms to existing special schools to accommodate more learners. And continuing this commitment for the coming year, as part of our Rapid School Build program, we will build 30 additional classrooms for learners with special needs at special and existing schools. The Honourable Khalid Syed points to the good work that the department has done to support our special needs learners, but he does identify the fact that there are still significant gaps. So let's work together to close those gaps. And he goes on to ask what impedes, what is the major impediment? Well, one of the major impediments, as he knows, is that provinces do not receive funding for special needs learners. Most members will know that while the number of learners in public ordinary schools are included in the formula that determines the provincial equitable share, it does not include learners in special needs schools. And I know that fellow members in this House have raised this matter as a matter of concern in the past. And I think that we need to work together to ensure that our learners with special needs are counted and are included and are funded in terms of the provincial equitable share formula. And I look forward to working with the Honourable Brett Heron and the Honourable Khalid Syed in order to achieve more support for our learners with special needs in the Western Cape.
Thank you so much. That concludes interpellation 1. We will now proceed to interpellation number 2. I again see the Honourable Minister for Education.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'm certainly earning my salary this afternoon in the House. Speaker, we have, of course, traversed this topic in the special debate this afternoon. But let me reiterate a couple of points. First, and most importantly, the decision to reduce the basket of posts was not taken lightly. We understand, of course, that this will result in difficult choices for our schools. It will increase class sizes and it will negatively affect teaching and learning in the Western Cape. We have worked hard over the past 5 years to reduce the average teacher to learner ratio in our province from 1 to 37.4 in 2020 down to 1 to 34.2 in 2024. However, with the reduction in the basket of posts, that ratio will go back up to 1 to 36.7 in 2024. We must all understand that we are in this position because the national government did not fully fund the 2023 multi-year wage agreement. We were short-changed by national government, receiving only 64% of the cost of the nationally negotiated agreement, leaving the province to fund the remaining 36%. despite implementing a drastic 2.5 billion rand budget cut, including, as I've said, on administration, curriculum and infrastructure, we still face a 3.8 billion rand budget shortfall over the next 3 years. I've said that the situation is critical. If we do not take drastic action to cover the massive shortfall, we will compromise our ability to pay our bills, which includes, of course, the salaries of teachers. Finding 3.8 billion rand within our budget is extremely difficult, and it is not achieved by cutting small programs. And even if we cut key programs like Back on Track, we would not come anywhere close to dealing with the shortfall. The only way we can close the gap would be to cut critical support to schools in poor communities, including school feeding, learner transport, payments to schools. We would have to hollow out non-personnel spending to become a department that only transfers salaries and does not offer any support to our teachers, to our learners in our schools. The fact is that we should never have been put in this position, and I'm doing everything I can to fight for our teachers here in the Western Cape. And again, I would urge the members of this House to fight alongside us and not against us for our teachers. The national government knew exactly what the financial impact of the decision not to fully fund the wage agreement would be. And the national government knew it would affect teaching and learning in all our provinces. That is why I've called on all the political leaders and the teachers' unions and the activists and the parents to join us in a greater cause to ensure that basic education becomes a key component of our growth agenda rather than a minority priority in our welfare agenda, and to stand together to ensure that basic education becomes a priority for national government so that we can deliver quality education for every child in every province across South Africa.
Thank you so much, Minister. I now recognize the Honorable Litha Kong.
Asibonge Sekela Somlomo.
You are audible, yes.
Asibonge Sekela Somlomo, the Deputy Speaker, the Western Cape is one of the 3 provinces in the country, alongside Gauteng and KZN, which continue to experience rapid learner growth due to population growth, migration, urban migration, etc. This then necessitates the province to increase its education budget in order to build more classrooms and hire more teachers for purposes of avoiding classroom overcrowding, as well as making sure that they produce quality education. Sekela Somlomo, after the COVID-19 pandemic, the cracks within the Western Cape education system were laid bare as the province had the worst teacher-to-learner ratio in the whole country. That is 1 teacher for every 37 learners, which meant that classrooms were overcrowded. Speaker, the issue of classroom overcrowding provides all sorts of problems which are destructive to both learners and teachers alike, and impacts on quality of education as well as the health of teachers. Speaker, having to constantly control and manage a larger crowd on a daily basis has the consequences of taking a toll on one's health. Immediately after the pandemic, while it was found that teachers' absenteeism in the Western Cape schools was low compared to other provinces, and teachers must be applauded for that. However, it was sadly discovered that part of the reason for their absenteeism was associated with depression and heart disease. While the argument is not to say that teaching on its own will lead to such health implications, but an argument can be made that having to grapple with a larger crowd of learners on a daily basis can impact on one's health. Similar, Speaker, when teachers are then absent due to illness, it is learners who suffers the brunt as their education is impacted. So part of a solution to all these is to increase the infrastructure in the form of creating more classrooms as the learner population continue to grow in the province, as well as the hiring of more teachers, so that the teacher to learner ratio can be reasonable and manageable. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you so much. I see Honorable Van Wyk.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Once again, this sitting remains dominated by the question of the basket of posts reduction in 2025. And we have discussed at length the issues surrounding this topic. In my debate speech, I discussed the fact that the WCED has had no choice in this matter. To reiterate once again, this is a crisis caused by national government's failure to adequately fund the 2023 public sector wage increase. There are some who have suggested making cuts to other areas of the education budget. It is my belief that these cuts would be to the serious detriment of many learners in the Western Cape and would still not cover the shortfall which National has left us with. For that reason, I wish to ask the Minister, what would cutting the Back on Track program, as some have suggested, mean for learners in poor communities? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I see the Honorable Jacobs.
That thing, you know. Yeah, I want to put you. Thank you, Speaker. Can I?
We will wait for you.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Your time will commence as soon as you start with your sentence.
Have a break. Have a Kit Kat. Thank you, Speaker. Greetings in the name of His Majesty. IHS. Speaker, as the NCC, we wish to inform this House that using Mitchell's Plain as an example, we notice that there are 17 high schools and 47 primary schools. Now, Speaker, the Western Cape Education Department Area South envisaged 444 educators to be cut due to this budget issue, as mentioned. But, Speaker, our schools will lose educators, but our community will lose more than just educators. We will be losing our sons and we will be losing our daughters. Because it is public knowledge, Speaker, that most of the children within Mitchell's Plain are either not in school or attend schools out of Mitchell's Plain, or they attend schools 15 to 20 kilometers from home. Now, Speaker, this cut will only increase a huge amount of kids not in school, ready to become bait for human traffickers and gangs, as the projected 60 kids per class will only create an unbearable situation. But it is sad to see, after 15 years, the ruling party in the Western Cape has created nothing and done nothing for the colored community besides temporary schools, temporary teachers, temporary programs, as if we are a temporary community, forgetting you found us here. You found us here. Speaker, the Western Cape top 20 high schools will not feel this. Their parents will pay high school fees, and the SGB post will cover these shortfalls, if there is any. But Speaker, bearing in mind, these are DA strongholds, and one cannot but wonder, is this not part of the plan to keep the Cape Flats uneducated? Speaker, the sudden destruction will have a negative effect, especially on the poor in the no-fee schools, because the Cape Flats has got many of them. It says.
Thank you, Honorable Jacobs. I see the Honorable Syed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. And let me thank the Honorable MEC for his response, while also thanking him for his response to this important interpellation. I want to also say that there's no use. Yes, of course, we want to all work together, and we will work together. And I think in various instances, we are working together to avert the crisis. However, working together is important, but we can't start by first declaring a crisis by first going out there, creating massive psychological problems amongst learners, creating uncertainty amongst teachers, by going out there and saying, no, these are the amount of posts that are going to go. You cannot do that. You first try to seek solutions, and then you make such announcements. So let's be builders and not breakers, as the Honourable Steenhuisen so aptly says at the National Assembly. Overcrowded classrooms, under-resourced schools, and overstretched teachers are already our reality. And now we are about to make it worse. Nearly 2,500 teachers gone. This is what this department wants. More than 800 million rand sent back to national government in just 4 years. It's how you manage the budget. The key to a stronger economy, I will emphasize again, is education. The key to personal empowerment is education. The key to pulling our most disadvantaged communities out of poverty is education. Yet, the Democratic Alliance would rather send money back because they can't spend it. What they do keep, they waste on failed schemes. They look after the rich while stealing an education from the poor. Then they blame others for their failures. Then they also say, and I'm glad that our trade unionists are still here.
Honourable
They
Member,
want to play.
Please conclude.
I'm wrapping up. They want to play the working class up against one another by saying that the cuts are as a result of the wage agreement. So they want workers to feel that because workers are getting a better salary, other workers must lose their jobs. That is disingenuous and that is simply disgraceful. The ANC
Please
stands
take your
in firm
seat, Honourable
opposition to this.
Syed. Your time has expired. Members, as you are fully aware, interpellations has a time limit. I would once again caution members to stick to the time limit as per the notice that has been circulated. I now see the Honourable Lita Kong.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Speaker, we are in this current situation where teachers' posts are targeted because of a one-sided decision that was taken by the Premier of this province some 5 years back in 2019 when he initiated budget cuts against the Provincial Health and Education Department in order to fund his so-called safety plan. Health and education in this province were robbed more than R1 billion, which ended up going into waste because it makes no sense for one to spend more in trying to halve the murder rate in the province. But then the same murder rate continues to increase out of control. The education budget should have been left alone. We still maintain that, and the province should have created a working relationship with South African Police Service in order to tackle crime in the province. The budget that was supposed to be used to fight crime in the province is that of SAPS and not of education. But that was not possible due to the hostile nature of the DA-run provincial government. Somlomo, the DA government is a chaotic and cannot get its priorities right. Recently, their leader, who's a Minister of Agriculture, poked his nose in a bill that has nothing to do with his department by threatening their fake GNU arrangement will be compromised if the president signed the Bella bill into law. One would expect the Minister of Education to deal with the matters involving the Bella bill, but no, because it's a mess in that party, everyone just stands up, neglect their duties, and focus on something that has nothing to do with them. In conclusion, Sekela Somlomo, I would like the minister to respond whether there will be any additional classrooms erected or built for 2025 in order to balance the teacher to learner ratio, and whether additional teachers will also be hired over and above the ones we currently have, as well as converting contract teachers into permanent posts. I thank you, Somlomo.
Thank you, Honourable Itakong, for sticking to the time. I now see the Honourable Mainier.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. To the Honourable Litkong, we, of course, do need to expand access to education in order to reduce overcrowding, as she suggests. And we do need to invest in infrastructure. which of course is precisely why we have launched our Rapid School Build program, which is building more schools faster than ever before. And as I said earlier, we expect to receive 2.5 billion rand in additional funding so that we, over the next 3 years, can supercharge our Rapid School Build program and build more schools to expand access and reduce overcrowding at schools in the Western Cape. To the Honourable Leon van Wyk, of course, cutting the Back on Track program would first have very little impact on the sheer size of the shortfall. And more importantly, in doing so, we would remove, and think about this, revision classes for matrics. We would remove books for foundation phase learners. We would reduce extra classes and teacher training for schools hardest hit by the pandemic, which of course are those schools in poor communities. Then to the Honourable Jacobs. The Rapid School Build program has expanded classes at several schools in Mitchell's Plain. And I'd like to remind the member that one of our top 20 schools, which is well known to members in this House, Spine Road High, is right in the centre of Mitchell's Plain. To the Honourable Khalid Syed, we are in fact not underspending. As the Honourable member knows, in fact, our department has been allocated in the last financial year an additional 115 million rand, which was underspent in other provinces, so that we can expand access to education in our province. And I'm quite sure that some members of the public who've joined us here would be shocked to hear that the Honourable Khalid Syed, if I call correctly, voted against that additional appropriation to expand access to education and reduce overcrowding in our schools. I also want to say to the Honourable member that we are not declaring a crisis. We are dealing with a crisis, and we are dealing with it decisively, and that crisis was caused by national government's failure to fully fund the 2023 wage agreement, and years of bailing out zombie state-owned enterprises across South Africa. I've said before, and I will say it again, we are now at a critical point. We have to decide as a country once and for all, whether basic education is actually a
Please
priority
conclude, Minister.
Here in South Africa. And I look forward to the honourable members joining me in that great cause. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is the end of interpellations. Order, members. We will now deal with questions as printed on the question paper. I wish to once again advise honourable members that once the Honourable Minister or Premier has started the reply to the oral question as printed on the question paper, honourable members must use the chat facility of this particular sitting for the House to indicate whether they have a follow-up question. There are also 4 opportunities for follow-up questions, but the honourable member who has posed the initial oral question as printed on the question paper will have the first opportunity for a follow-up question. Thereafter, other honourable members may then use the remaining minutes and the remaining opportunities to ask a follow-up question. I now recognise the Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and thank you very much to the Honourable Van Minnen for the question. In reply A, the ICT skills which the participants acquire during the training program empower them with essential skills to compete in the job market and improve their digital literacy in order to participate in the digital society. Participants are equipped with a variety of essential digital skills during these courses. Participants learn the fundamental concepts and skills related to using devices, managing files, understanding networks, and ensuring data security. Participants learn how to do web browsing and effective information searching, online communication and email usage. Participants gain proficiency in using word processing applications to create, format and finalize everyday documents such as letters. Participants also get to know how to use spreadsheet applications, develop, format, modify and utilize spreadsheets, including the use of standard formulas and functions and the creation of formatting of graphs or charts. They also learn how to use presentation tools in creating, formatting and modifying and preparing presentations with various slide layouts, both display and printed distribution. And an important focus is exposing participants to IT security in terms of identifying and the protection against common security challenges in ICT, teaching them how to operate safely online. These skills collectively ensure that participants are well prepared to navigate and utilize digital tools effectively and securely. Apart from the above, we also found that some skills are a spin-off from training received. Below are a few examples. Teaching training skills. So Rian Makeli from Goed Gedacht Farm wrote, I had the privilege to serve the community by teaching them the basics to computer, start doing maths classes for primary school children. Confidence amongst participants to improve their lives as indicated by Cheslin Swartz from Clan William. And I quote, I successfully complete the e-learning course. I found a new job at Clicks as a cashier, and only after a month of intensive searching, I was promoted from cashier to an advisor in the medical aisle, and after 1 year was promoted to the management team. Start or improve business and create work for fellow community members, as indicated by Faisal Hendricks, founder and owner of Swag Services in Clan William. And there, I quote, my dream was to start my own business so that I can work for myself, but also to create work opportunities for my community and a legacy for my child. The basic e-learner course was way better than I could have imagined. My plan is to follow my dream. I am currently the owner of Swag Services. We do the following installations: DSTV, OVHD, repair, and many more. I finally can do my own quotations, posters, and business cards. And then lastly, the ability to study further. This comes from Michael Roeder from Bella Vista Cirrus. And there I quote, in 2017, I applied for the basics and e-learner course, and I got an international e-learner license. With an opportunity afterwards, I was enrolled in N6 management assistant courses. With the ICT skills I gained at the center, I was able to complete the course with ease. And then B, Mr. Deputy Speaker, enhanced job prospects. IT skills significantly enhance job prospects and help meet the demand for skills relevant to the fourth industrial revolution and economic growth. Rural development, access to these skills in disadvantaged and rural areas where the majority of the Western Cape government e-centres are located is a significant investment in rural development and socio-economic inclusion. Then employment attractiveness and marketability. Having IT skills and certification makes candidates more attractive to employers and boosts their confidence in applying for competitive jobs in the local market. It allows candidates to apply for diverse career opportunities and achieve faster career progression. And then lastly, practical benefits. Training at Western Cape Government e-centres enables individuals to complete tasks more efficiently in job situations. Citizens gain access to internet facilities, allowing them to search for and apply for jobs at the e-centre while training. They have immediate access to templates for creating curriculum vitae. They have e-centres sometimes invite government agencies for in-person recruitment drives on site. Awareness is provided on these at training sessions at the e-centres, and it serves as a point of access for completing SARS registrations online, making them a place for budding entrepreneurs to access these resources. Thank you.
I now recognize the honourable member who posed the question. Honourable Van Binnen, do you have a follow-up?
Thank you, Chair, but I'm working remotely, so it's going to be Honourable Walters. Thank you.
Duly noted. I now see the Honourable Walters.
In the Premier's opinion, what is the importance of ensuring a digitally skilled and future-focused workforce for the Western Cape future? Hey, Letulias doesn't write my question. You know,
Honourable member, please take your seat.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and to the Honourable Member Walters for that follow-up question. Of course, I mean, enabling your citizens digitally really enables them to play a part in the modern world. So it is really critical that these are the kind of services offered in these centres. We have 75 of them now, and of course we've launched our first mobile, and hopefully we'll have a few more mobiles into the future, because that enables us not only to be in a small place like classroom, but you can actually have these mobiles that can go further into much more rural areas of the Karoo, for example. And so that does, enable specifically our youth to play a meaningful role into the future. I also think that as we're moving forward into this new tech-enabled world, it's interesting, initially it was about how do we use the platform for coding courses, but now, I mean, young people are not going and doing a coding course because AI will do the coding for you. So they're learning to do AI-type applications through these programs. And I remember visiting Chloe Dix in Grassy Park the other day. This was during Women's Month, and I was visiting some businesses, and she told me she was fully self-taught through the internet systems that we make available to our citizens on coding, and now she's developed her business, and her business is offering services to people in the community, and she did all of that herself online while doing those trainings. And then, of course, I think the project that we managed to pull down through the Amazon investment into their training program, which is a million training opportunities. The first time they've done it outside of America, they did it here in the Western Cape. And it was interesting. I visited that space the other day, and they're offering 1 million free cloud computing and that kind of project training courses with certification that's recognized across the world. And it's amazing. In the first year, 300,000 people have got certified across the province, and they are using these online because it's an online training program. You can go on site, but it's a very small training facility, but you can go online. So you utilize these facilities not only for the programs that we offer, but also for other programs that the economy offers, and that again makes our youth much more employable and can play a part in the modern world.
Members, I have not noted any other follow-ups. I will now again recognize the Premier, question 2.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to the Honourable Walters for this question. This is about the memorandum that was signed. And so just the other day, so the Department of Police and Oversight and Community Safety have informed me that the agreement seeks to address the lack of coherence of planning and implementation of efforts to prevent, combat and investigate crime, and also to maintain public order between the South African Police Service, the Department of Police Oversight and the Community Safety and Police Oversight Department and the City of Cape Town and their various layers of law enforcement and Metro Police. As per paragraph 2 of the agreement, the objective of this agreement is to record the cooperation of the parties in purpose of a shared vision for safety and security within the City of Cape Town, encompassing various initiatives, programs and strategies aimed at promoting a safe, secure and conducive environment. And there, of course, there are 7 sub-programs within. These deal with the creation of shared safer city vision that maximizes integrated relationships with spheres of government and civil society. It's about the development of programs, plans and interventions and infrastructure that will seek to reduce levels of crime. The development of an aligned approach to support and enhance economic performance within the province, ensuring that a conducive platform is created that traverses decision-making levels at all spheres of government and other relevant stakeholders. It's about building internal capacity to ensure successful delivery of the area of cooperation as set out in Clause 5. It deals with undertaking research and development, procurement and commissioning of technological infrastructure where resources are integrated, and the alignment of strategies aimed at promoting safe and secure environments, as well as the coordination and implementation thereof. 8 joint working streams have been established to develop annual plans to give effect to the objective of this agreement. The result of the work stream engagements will feed into an overarching annual plan to be signed off by the steering committee of the cooperative agreement.
I see the Honourable Walters.
Thank you, Premier. That was quite comprehensive. It's natural for you to speak from a Western Cape perspective, but I think it's also important to inform how national government approach it. So, in your opinion, what advice would you give to, as a Premier, to the National Minister of Police to ensure the success of this agreement? How do you believe national government should approach this? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Member Walters. So, of course, national government is integral in part of this agreement, and perhaps I must actually use this opportunity to thank Minister Mchunu. I mean, within a month of him being appointed, we were already having meetings about how we can work together, and this is really a refreshing new space in policing in our province, which we didn't really have in the last term. I think it's obviously driven by a government of national unity, a coalition at a national level, a new minister that really is open to different ideas, and that is really refreshing. I mean, we've had some really good engagements with him, and that's why this is the first agreement of its kind in South Africa. In the discussion with the President, along with the Minister and the Deputy Minister, as well as the province and the city, we've agreed as well that this is the basis of an agreement that will be rolled out in other provinces as well, because we need to see how it works differently in different provinces. Different provinces have different challenges. I mean, gangsterism is a big issue for us and our communities here in the Western Cape. And so, you know, how does the GNU and through the national government make sure that we have different focus areas around dealing with gangsterism, the drug trade, how closing that down, linking through to, you know, all of those facets of policing, whether it's gender-based violence, it's incorporated in the agreement, or whether it's what we're seeing in extortion. And so different provinces will design it, but we are the first province, and I really do welcome this new way of approaching this issue. And yeah, there's a whole lot of areas of focus, as I've said, 8 different work streams, and we will try things, we will do different things, we will, as you've said in the beginning, from the safety plan point of view, you know, let's try something and see if that brings about change. If it doesn't work, we'll change it and try something else, because we cannot continue with 27,000 murders in our country or 4,000 murders in this province, and it just gets worse every single year. It cannot be. So we have to try different things, and I think this is a really it's a really a serious and a good step forward in tackling it in a different way.
I see the Honourable Bryant.
Thank you, Speaker. Premier, you mentioned again how the Western Cape is leading the way when it comes to initiatives such as this one. And it is fantastic to also hear that we now have a minister finally at a national level who wants to work towards finding solutions. But Premier, what is it that you have found in particular with our municipalities here in the Western Cape under the DA control, but in specifically the city of Cape Town? What has the city of Cape Town brought to the party to enable this memorandum to be signed, and what are we doing differently here that could possibly be replicated elsewhere? Thank you, Premier.
Thank you very much. I mean, I think for a long time there have been programs on safer cities. But really, how did we get it across the line and get it going? And I think that was a big driving force from the city itself. I think the other area that the city really brings to the table is the added technology that they've been investing in for a long time. So whether it's ShotSpotter, whether it's Eye in the Sky and the drone technologies, how those fit into a system that we are now looking at integration across the board of those systems. In this province, we've got our data and evidence that comes out of our medical system, the Hector system, and that's interesting because it doesn't exist in other provinces, and they're saying, well, how do we get this and can we share it? And absolutely, we want to share it. So I think technology plays a very important role. I also think that looking at what's happening, say, for example, and it's not only in the city of Cape Town, what's happening at the moment with the building of that combined centre in Mossel Bay. That is also making a big difference, where Mossel Bay are proactively creating a space where, you know, from the SAPs to traffic to even the environmental people who deal with rhino poaching or poaching in our oceans, they are also sitting in that control room. So it really is, how do we bring all of that to the table and says, can we work together to make sure we're building those new systems? And there are a lot of these systems that currently don't talk to each other. Our traffic camera system does not talk to the police management system. The police management system is not connected to the city's EPIC system. And we've got to get all of those, but that's part of the technology stuff. And maybe something that's quite interesting, I spoke about technology in the city. The training facility that is now in place that we actually got through a partnership with New York, which is a virtual training facility. It's the only one on the African continent. And it's interesting, tomorrow, some of the SAPS officers are now going to do firearm training at that city training facility. And that just shows you there's now suddenly a new environment, a new way of thinking. And so now our SAPS officers are actually going to be able to utilize that training facility, which really is, I mean, I want to say light years ahead, but it is so much more modernized than just going to a shooting range and shooting at a fixed target, because they can create real life systems or scenarios. So you will be going into a school with a shooting, or you will be going into a narrow street without streetlights, because you can recreate the environment, and then you can go and learn and play it back again, find out where you were slow, where you need to work on your effectiveness in that specific shooting environment. And so this is about enabling new tech that is being embraced by the South African Police Services. So I think those are the kind of new ways of doing things that are coming to the table, and we're agreeing that we're sharing in all of this together.
Honourable Benson and Quencho, I see you.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And thanks, Member Walters, for bringing this question. Today is the 12th day since the signing of the cooperation agreement. Are there any deaths since the signing of this agreement? If so, how many? And also the area of their concentration. Thank you very much.
Amendment Quencher, we have been over this. It's one follow-up question. Premier, I will allow you to answer the first part and the one question that was posed.
So thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Of course, the answer must be yes. Of course, the answer must be yes. If you have 4,000 murders in a province in a year, we're talking about hundreds of people that are murdered in our country every single day. So of course it is yes. But I also want to say, Speaker, that the honourable member, and I know he's new, so we'll forgive him for that. But this is kind of saying, okay, fine, he wants a real detailed analysis. And I suppose what I could do is go back to that chart that I was using earlier, but it is really a new question. If he wants to unpack the number of murders, the number of deaths in each specific policing precinct, quite frankly, that detail actually probably comes from a national department. But I'll forgive him for that. And I think if he really wants that kind of detail, I'm more than happy for him to place that as a written question or even as a verbal question if he is really interested in that kind of answer.
Thank you so much. The final opportunity, I see Honourable Murray.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and thank you for the opportunity. Honourable Premier, I just wanted to know from you, in your discussions with the National Minister, and we welcome this approach, joint approach in solving crime, but in your discussion with the National Minister, will the police reservists also form part of the plan going forward in combating crime?
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Obviously, the actual document and the work streams were put together by our Police Oversight and Community Safety Department, led by Minister Honourable Murray, and of course the city team led by Alderman JP Smith. So I can't, and I didn't discuss specifically with the President and the Minister in that engagement about reservists. But I want to say to you that I think it is something that seriously has to be looked at, because I think in the last while it is a competency that has been let to leave the system of policing, and we really should look at how we bring it back. So in my own discussions with the Minister, it was not part of our discussion. We had a much higher level discussion, but I want to say to you that probably that is a very good question to ask in the Oversight Committee with the Minister, because I absolutely support you on that idea that we need to enable more and more opportunities for reservists who are really people who are passionate and want to make a difference. So I absolutely support you on that. And we need to find ways of bringing it back, because I think those decisions to actually disband the usage of reservists has been a big failure in the last years in policing in our country. Thank you.
Thank you.
Order, members. Question number 3, I see the Honourable Kasim. The Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. But can I thank the Honourable Kasim for the question? And the answer is no.
Honourable Kasim, do you have a follow-up question?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Yes, I do. Due to the crisis which the Education Department currently faces with regards to the potential cutting of teachers' posts in the province, I want to ask the Premier, did you learn anything from the past about compromising the education budget in the province and the consequences which comes along with that in the long term?
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to the Honourable Kasim for that message, or for that follow-up question. You know, obviously I know what she's talking about. She's talking about when in 2019, when I first became the Premier, and understanding that unfortunately crime is devastating our communities. And we had to make a decision on what are we going to do differently about fighting crime. I'd asked for devolution of power, and the then Minister Becky Cele said to me, over my dead body. He wasn't interested at all in the citizens who were being shot and murdered and raped in our province. And so we had to think differently. And so obviously we put a safety plan together. And when you put a plan together, you have to put some budget aside for it. And of course, in our province, 80% of our budget goes to education and health. And so for every rand that you put towards a project, you know that if you had to divide it up, there would be a significant amount coming from the two biggest areas of your budget. That was in 2019. And so, of course, we've had many reports on the program. And I think specifically, if I want to say, what about the lessons? And I think specifically on the Safer Schools program, because I'm talking about education, and specifically on the health system and the 1% of the budget that we pulled together, actually less than 1% of the budget that we pulled together to look at safety issues. And I think that my lesson is definitely, looking at the money well spent. And I think about the previous question about how we've used that to now get to a stage where we've got a national government saying, let's talk about different policing models. Let's talk about how we work together to build safer society. It is absolutely something that I would not reverse. I would look at it and say, it's exactly what I would do over again. And remember, this was in 2019. We've moved on a long time since then. We now, 5 years later, it's actually just over 4 years of the safety plan and the implementation of the safety plan and how it makes a difference. In education, obviously building a safer environment for our learners, of course, in health. And we use the health data, which is very interesting to see other countries now. I was at a Stellenbosch University symposium with criminologists from around the world, and how at that meeting there was a Dutch criminologist said they cannot believe that this system called Hectus and how it's feeding into deployment and creation of hotspots in crime fighting, how effective that is. And he was saying, well, I'm going back to Holland with this idea to say, how can we build a similar system to what you've built here? And of course, we know that every time you stop a murder, that person does not become a burden on the health system. And it is exponentially, if you read, and Honorable Kasim should know, because she was part of the last term, that we have a very extensive document called The Burden of Disease. And if you have a look in that document, the actual cost of safety on our health system, you would also see that that is probably at the end of the day, money not just well spent, but a lot of money saved.
I see the Honourable Walters.
What measures has the Premier's government taken thus far to ensure the insulation or the protection of the health and wellness and education departments from budgetary shortfalls?
I agree with the Honourable Nkondlo that is a new question, but I'll endeavour to answer it. If you think back over the last 5 years, and if you think how the budget, and you heard in the debate, the Minister of Education actually replying on the exact change and increase in the percentage of our provincial budget and how we've increased that over time, number one. Number two, I think, as you know, I mean, that's where 80% of our budget goes. But that is why we've got this massive fight on our hands to make sure that we get our fair share. That's all we're asking. Not an unfair share, we want our fair share. And we've got to have mechanisms that this gets corrected far quicker than we have seen in the past. As I said in the debate, 2011 census corrected in 2013-14, which took us to 10%, and we are now in excess of 10%. That is the same formula that's being supplied. And of course, if you go back, I don't know where I wrote it down, but how the budget has actually increased in 2019 in education specifically, it was 23.6 billion rand, and now sitting at 30.55 billion rand. So, of course, it's about protecting, it's about making decisions, and we are going into that process now. I think on the 30th, on the 2nd of October is our next big engagement Minister Bartman and myself will be going up and being in the extended cabinet, and we will take this fight to the extended cabinet to make sure that we push for our fair share. And then, of course, from there, we've got budget policy statements, adjustment budgets. We'll be fighting for better share in adjustment budgets. And then, of course, we go into our own MTech, the end of this year, and then MTech 2 beginning of next year, so that we also make those decisions of apportioning, shifting, cutting, stopping doing things, so that we can actually keep our focus areas funded. Thank you.
I do not see any further follow-ups. I now, question number 4, and I recognize the Chief Whip.
Mr. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I understand that question 4 has been withdrawn.
Question 5, I see the Chief Whip.
Question 5, likewise, has also been withdrawn.
Question 6, I now see the Honourable Minister of Social Development, Yakulund.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. And to Member Kaiser Philander, thank you for the question. I'm going to give a shortened version, and then I'm going to make sure that we expand so we fully understand. So yes, Census 2022 has limitations, but is still very useful to the Department of Social Development for planning. However, DSD does not only use census data, but also uses many other sources of data, such as Stats SA surveys, Stats SA thematic reports, data from other government departments and the City of Cape Town, data from parastatal research houses such as HSRC, MRC, and CSIR, and data from universities. Now that just sounds like we are throwing out a lot of names. So let me just unpack that a little bit for members of the House and for those listening. There is a definite census undercount. The recent South African census had an undercount of approximately 32%. Now all censuses worldwide usually have an undercount. Statistical methods have therefore been developed to measure and account for this undercount so that the final census figures can be adjusted for that undercount. The census figures released for the 2022 by Statistics South Africa have been adjusted for the undercount. However, a reasonable undercount is usually a single-digit undercount which can be adjusted by using various statistical methods. The unusually high undercount of Census 2022 has, however, questioned the reliability of the adjustment factor applied to the census data. At the higher levels of geography, such as a national level and provincial level, the adjustment factor should be fine. However, at lower levels of geography, such as a local, municipal, or sub-municipal levels, the adjustment factor comes with much larger margins of error, which makes the numbers less reliable. The census, although a very important source for a population headcount and for planning purposes, is not the only source of headcount data. The mid-year population estimates published annually provide a population headcount by five-year age cohorts disaggregated by sex at a national, provincial, district, municipal, and this includes the metro and local municipal level. Now, the non-release of economic data. Stats South Africa has decided not to release any economic data from Census 2022. Therefore, no employment and income data will be released. Traditionally, census data on these variables has been poor. Survey data from the quarterly labor force survey and income and expenditure surveys provide better quality data on employment and income. The census is taken once every 10 years. And as it says in the name, the quarterly labor force survey, that is taken at a quarterly level. The IES is done on a 3-year cycle, and therefore, not only the QLFS and the IES data, they are more accurate reflections of economic data, but it is also updated more regularly. The only drawback being is that it's not available at a sub-provincial level. Low-level data. So the survey data usually only provides data at a national level and a provincial level. Sub-provincial data can only be drawn from larger-scale community surveys, which is conducted between censuses. Censuses are the data sets that provide data at sub-municipal level, down to a suburb and enumerator area levels. No such data will be released from Census 2022. The lowest level at which data will be provided will be at an electoral ward level. Now, this is a challenge for planners. Because censuses happen only every 10 years and wards often gets moved in between censuses, the other data sources are therefore used for planning purposes. The Department of Social Development therefore uses a variety of data resources to report and to inform its planning. The alternate sources of data, as stated above, is the following: the cause of death report, which is published annually with data at a magisterial district level. The recorded live births, published annually with data at the magisterial district level. The community survey, published between censuses 5 years after each census with data at the municipal level. The general household survey, published annually with data at a provincial and a metro level. The income and expenditure survey or living conditions survey, published alternatively every 3 years with data at a provincial level. Victim of crime survey or governance, public safety and justice survey, published annually with data at a provincial level. And then there's the mid-year population estimates, published annually with data at a municipal level. The quarterly labour force survey, which is published quarterly with data at a provincial and a metro level. In addition to the data sets above, numerous reports are also published by Stats SA on various themes, such as the mortality and causes of death in South Africa, the Gender Series, Volume 11, Women Empowerment, Youth in South Africa, the 2024 version, Subjective Poverty in South Africa, Findings from the General Household Survey 2019 and 2022, the Migration Profile Report for South Africa, a Country Profile 2023, the Marginalized Groups Indicator Report of 2022, Child Series Volume 2, Crime Against Children 2022, and many similar reports. The department also collaborates with the City of Cape Town and various provincial departments that have data at a suburb level that they share with the department. The Department of Environmental Affairs and Development and Planning provides spatial data and settlement level data. The Department of Health and Wellness provides health data at a public health facility and health district level. The Western Cape Education Department provides school enrollment data at a school district level. The parastatal research organizations such as the Human Science Research Council, the Medical Research Council, and the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research also regularly publish data and reports such as the substance abuse data published by the MRC. Academic institutions in the country also publish various research reports and data on a range of subjects, all relevant to the department. Now, this is a mouthful, members of this House. However, we can all condense this in a very short phrase. The Western Cape is not receiving its fair share of the budget based on the population that we have in this province. And that not only negatively impacts the Department of Social Development, that negatively impacts every single department in the Western Cape. We are the third most populous province in the country. We only receive the fifth highest share of the budget. This is something that we must take hands across the aisle, because each and every one of us represents voters in this province, from the Crags to Maritzburg to Van Reinsdorp to Athlone to Mitchells Plain. And if we do not stand up and fight for this at every opportunity we can, we are failing the residents of this province. And until we get our fair share, it's going to negatively impact us in delivering the services we are ready to deliver, should we get our fair share of the budget. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
I now see the Honourable Kaiser Philander.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and please allow me to thank the Minister through you for a very comprehensive an extensive response to the initial question. Minister, I also note that you made mention of the various data sources, and I think that in a way puts one mind at ease, because the last thing that you want is that the most vulnerable be affected by these inaccuracies as it is widely regarded. Minister, given the census data as we have it now, it is widely regarded as an estimate rather than an accurate count. So I think you've mentioned it in your letter comment that no department can really allocate or plan effectively in terms of resources based on estimates. So, Minister, I would like to know from you, is there a need for the Department of Social Development in the Western Cape at this point for you and the department to adjust any internal human resources to continue supporting the most vulnerable communities, considering that this department is a welfare-driven mandate? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. So, since it's Public Service Month, and I sound very clever reading you all of this information, but we have professionals in service of the voters of this province that has put all of this together, that collate all of this information, overlay the data, and make sure we have the most accurate data available at our disposal to make data-driven decisions. Now, this department, similar to health, similar to education, we have many staff that work at the coalface. And I can say unequivocally, we do not have enough staff to do all the work that's needed to service the most vulnerable. But if we get our fair share of the budget, we should be able to look at it and say, where can we, based on the data available, deploy our resources? But we have gone further. We do not have enough funding as we should have, but we have used the technology that's available to us. Technology developed in-house, driven by the professionals that work in this department, the SWIMS app. And that app now ensures that our social workers can reinvest thousands, if not millions upon hours, back to the most vulnerable. Now, colleagues, you can do a quick calculation. Between the NGOs that we fund and the DSD social workers we've got, it's about 1,400, give or take. If we only save 10 minutes per case file that we do digitally, instead of working on those old brown envelopes, that's already 14,000 minutes saved by one case on one day. If we then take that and we multiply just by 3 cases a day, and they do much more, but just 3 cases a day, that's already 42,000 minutes saved across the province only by social workers that's in DSD and the NGOs. That's in one day. If you multiply that by a 5-day work week, and our social workers don't just work 8 to 5, after hours they get called out, over weekends they're called out, but if only we use 5 days, that takes us to 210,000 minutes saved per week using technology. If you multiply that across a full year, you multiply that across a term, we have saved millions of minutes by using technology developed by our professionals to reinvest back to the most vulnerable in our province. But there's a bigger challenge. We need to make sure that it's not just the Western Cape that buys into this. We need to make sure that we have all departments, all municipalities also buying into this. Because if you have a child traveling from Merweville, started the interventions there, and that child is now living with family in Vredenburg, that social worker in Vredenburg doesn't have to start from scratch, getting all the information, seeing what interventions have been done. That social worker can pick up the baton from the one that left it in Maritzburg and continue the interventions that's needed. And it's even more important that we advocate that this gets rolled out across the country, because if we can save so many millions of minutes and hours in the Western Cape, imagine the power if we roll that out in the entire country. So if you have a child coming from Punu that have started the interventions there and now looking for better education in the Western Cape, the intervention started by the social worker in the Eastern Cape, that baton can just be picked up in the Western Cape and we can run forward. So yes, we are looking to get more social workers. Honourable Chairperson of my standing committee, that's making sure that we do our job. We're also using technology and making do with a little bit that we have to stretch it a lot further to service the most vulnerable and those in need. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
I see the Honourable Bryant.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the Minister spoke about the fair share on a couple of occasions and how we should be taking hands as the Parliament to work together to argue for our fair share. And I was just wondering whether or not the Minister had any advice for colleagues on the opposition benches as to how they can assist us in fighting for that fair share. Some techniques, some guidance, some strategies that would assist. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Brian. So I am going to acknowledge that I actually do not know how other political parties' internal mechanisms work. I can make assumptions on how it works, but it will be a guessing game. But if I do have to give an educated guess to you, I will also raise it on how we do it internally, because we now have members that forms part of the GNU. We have colleagues that's the same party that we have a minister that we can pick up the phone and say, Minister Leon Schreiber, we've got a problem, and he returns your call. And in that way, if we have issues that we want to raise in our cabinet, we have advocates elsewhere for us that can also take it up. And the same way we have colleagues across the board representing the voters of the Western Cape, because it's not about political parties, it's about the voters of the Western Cape. And every single person represented in this House, they earned their right to serve in this House. Doesn't matter if you've got 1 seat or if you've got 8 seats, if you lost 4 seats or if you gained 3 seats, that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you earned your right to serve in this House. And therefore, every single one of us, from one hymn sheet,
Honourable Minister, are you able to take your seat?
I am able to do so, Deputy Speaker.
Please do so. Honourable Nkondlo.
Deputy Speaker, please can you rule on us being abused here? The original question here, it is here, we can read. It's got nothing to do with what the MEC now is going on and on and on about. And all other members here, they get to be told to stick to the original question. So why are we being abused? We're not interested in how other members are interested to talk. They can go to tea and talk about how multi-party can work, or else they can at least put a question on that matter. We can't allow Parliament to actually degenerate to this.
Honourable Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I just wish to rise on Rule 203D, which says a supplementary question must relate to the original question or to the reply, as the member has done so, Deputy Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you so much, honourable members. Honourable members, we have 11 minutes remaining. I would want us to continue and maintain the decorum of this particular House, but I will again indicate to members, and if a member is reaching, please refrain from reaching to such an extent where you pose an entirely new question. So I will allow the Minister to conclude this section of his particular reply, but also again caution members, we are all here in order to serve the residents of our province and not to overreach to such an extent where it is a new question. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. So as I was getting to how we can advocate as people who earned our fair share, and yes, Honourable Member, through you, Deputy Speaker, you earned your fair share in this House although you lost a third of your seats, that is the fair share that voters decided to give to you. But you still have to advocate for the residents of this province with your colleagues at a national level. You have access to the National Minister of Finance to say, I am a member of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. I represent the voters of the Western Cape Parliament. We are not getting our fair share of the budget in the Western Cape. And as a member of the Western Cape Parliament, even if I'm an ANC member, I will fight that voters of this province will get their fair share. Because if we raise it here, we do not do so because we are grandstanding, we're playing politics. We are doing so because voters, residents in this province, are being shortchanged by the national government, and we are not getting our fair share. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you so much, Minister. Order, members. I now see the Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy Speaker, just a correction earlier, questions 4, 5 and question 7 will stand over until the next sitting as per agreed with the Minister and the members.
Duly noted. I trust that the Honourable Petrus took note of that particular comment, and the table staff will accordingly minute your input. I now see the Honourable Minister Simmers.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, through you to the Honourable Member Jacobs, my response is as follows, and I confine it to the context within which I believe he is asking this question. 9A, a total of 5 social housing projects have been constructed in historically coloured areas, comprising a total of 2,506 rental units. Your B part, each social housing project is managed independently by social housing institutions, meaning the department does not have direct, real-time access to detailed demographic data for each project. This information changes on a regular basis as new tenants move in. However, based on the most recent data, approximately 1,770 social rental housing units across these 5 projects are currently occupied by coloured families. 9C, the department, in collaboration with municipalities across our province, implements the Integrated Residential Development Programme. This program assists families with a monthly income of less than 1,850 rand, as well as those who are unemployed or do not receive a fixed income, as it caters for families earning between 0 and 3,500 rand per month, and provides service sites with prioritized groups also receiving a standard breaking new ground or BNG house. Allocation of these housing opportunities follows the standard policies set by the respective municipalities. Thank you.
Honourable Jacobs, my apologies. Your first follow-up.
Dankie Minister. Ek wil net vra kan Minister vir ons so 'n lysie stuur van almal die areas waar hierdie social housing gebou is, sodat ons ook maar self ons eie oversight kan gaan doen, because Minister sien there's a difference between a real reality and a glossy report. Dankie.
Achtbare Minister.
Achtbare Speaker, my Engels sou dit nou uitgaan om se kan Afrikaans praat. Vandeer u achtbare Speaker aan die achtbare lid. Die lid het ek verneem en verstaan dat die lid eerste termyn lid van die wetgewer is. Daar is 'n jaarlikse jaarverslag wat my departement uitreik. Ons kategoriseer alle projekte, insluitende sosiale behuisingsprojekte wat al reeds voltooi is, waarmee ons besig is en wat ook in die pipeline is. En ek sal deur u achtbare Speaker vir die lid dan van so 'n lys voorsien, maar ek dink ook alle lede, want weer eens benadruk en ek verwelkom verantwoordbare oorsig, gegee dat ons weet die achtbare lid is baie lief vir TikTok en hy is nou en dan baie lief om by verkeerde plekke oorsig uit te oefen. Baie dankie.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I recognize the Honourable Vessels, Honourable Masipa, Can I just get from the table staff? Is there anyone I'm missing? Honourable Wessels.
Thank you, Speaker. Through you to the Minister, I would just like him to briefly explain the difference between social housing and BNG or fully subsidised government housing projects. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honourable Wessel. Honourable Minister, that there's a component to a new question in that question. So, as always, I'm not going to dictate how you respond, but I will allow you an opportunity now.
Baie dankie, voorsitter. En speaker, ek het in my oorspronklike repliek op die agbare lid se vraag eintlik verwys na die ander komponent waarna die agbare Wessels ook verwys. So ek gee nie om aan beide komponente van hierdie vraag te beantwoord nie. In eerste instansie, sosiale behuising as self vorm deel van die sambreel van bekostigbare behuising. Dit is nie 'n eienaarskapmodel nie, maar 'n goedkoper huurkomponent verbonde tot die menslike nedersettings familie. Hier het natuurlik 'n spesifieke strata waarop dit ook fokus, agbare speaker, en as sulks individue wat toegang kry en benut tot sosiale behuising moet verstaan dat dit is nie 'n eienaarskap voorbeeld in behuising nie, dit is slegs 'n goedkoper huurkomponent waar die staat 'n subsidie nie aan 'n individu oorbetaal nie, maar die staat betaal 'n subsidie oor aan 'n sosiale behuisingsinstituut wat hierdie fasiliteite bestuur van nature namens die staat. Maar die voordeel van dit is natuurlik dat die huur wat so 'n ontvanger van hierdie vorm van subsidie ontvang, betaal eintlik tot sover as meer as 50% minder as die markverwante huur in die spesifieke area. Die ander komponent van die vraag van die agbare Wessels verwys natuurlik na die ou RDP of soos ons tans dit noem, die BNG-program wat 'n volle staatssubsidie is in die naam van die individu. Wat gekoppel is tot 'n behuisingsprojek, maar wat 'n eienaarskap of titelakte oordrag aan die begunstigde van daardie projekte voorsien. Natuurlik, die kriteria van beide is baie na dieselfde. Al verskil is, die een is eienaarskap en die een is baie goedkoper nie markverwante huuropsie wat nie eienaarskap bied nie. Baie dankie.
Baie dankie, agbare Minister. Ek recognize the Honourable Masipa.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, my question really relates to the Conradi social housing. The Minister recently visited this social housing, and I will assume that this social housing is also includes, historically disadvantaged colored people. So the question is, Minister, what is the progress with regards to this social housing that you just visited recently? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Masipa. Again, Honourable Minister, that is a new question. If you are not able to provide, if you're not able to provide the answer, I would accept that. But again, like always, I'm not going to dictate how you respond. Honourable Minister.
Now, thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and through you, I am in a position to actually answer the member because again, my original response, I did refer to the Integrated Residential Development Program. Now, the Conradi Better Living Model, or Conradi site in Pinelands, encapsulates the entire IRDP program within the human settlements family. We have, and I'll answer the one component which has been asked, which refers to the social housing project. As part of the Conradi project, there is indeed phase one of the social housing program has been fully tenanted. I did visit the site actually on Monday, and phase two is set to yield just under 700 social housing units. As we currently stand, both blocks, which will be 8 stories high, are at 80% of the construction is nearly complete. The pre-tenanting phase, we've already approved, or the Social Housing Institute, which is Own Haven, which manages the social housing units at Conradi, has indicated that up to 70% of possible beneficiaries has been pre-approved. Obviously, my department plays a very limited role in the Conradi project in terms of social housing, in that Own Haven also deals with the applications, not the City of Cape Town, nor the Provincial Department of Infrastructure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, that is the end of questions for oral reply. Outstanding replies will be printed in Hansard. We now move on to questions to the Premier without notice in terms of Rule 204 Honourable members, I wish to remind you that 2 follow-ups per question posed, which relates to the initial question, will be allowed, and only the member, as in terms of Rule 204, is allowed to ask the follow-up questions. I now recognise the Honourable Jacobs.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker. Good day, Mr. Premier. I hope you're good, sir. Premier, a company called TCC has been charged with fraud and will make an appearance at the Belleville Commercial Crimes Court the 20th of this month. This company has been red flagged by your political peers in the City of Cape Town, and they are no longer providing any services to the City of Cape Town. Can Mr. Premier please explain to us how this provincial government find it so retrospectively to award the Somerset Hospital tender to the alleged fraudsters, TCC? I thank you.
Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Unfortunately, that is a very difficult question to answer. I've got no idea who TCC is, and of course, as a politician in our government, we don't get involved in tenders at all. So if you really want the answer for that, can you please put it in writing? I'll get you all the detail.
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier. Honourable Jacobs, you have a follow-up question? You are covered. Right, then we move on to the next order members. I now recognise the Honourable Lekker.
Premier, in May 2023, the DG signed into law the Western Cape Government Harassment Policy into law. The policy recognizes harassment as a violation of human rights and is classed as unfair discrimination, which the provincial government condemns and shall not tolerate. Could you please clarify whether the Western Cape Government harassment policy has been applied in the cases of Farrell Payne, Graham Paulse, and former MEC Albert Fritz? If so, could you provide the relevant details? If not, could you explain why the policy has not been applied in these cases? Thank you.
Honourable Premier, before you respond, Honourable Member, I wish to remind you, you can pose 1 question. You had 3 questions in your submission. So, Honourable Premier, I'm not going to allow all to you to respond to all of those because a member is allowed 1 question. There's 2 opportunities for follow-ups.
Thank you very much. I mean, I know that we had a formal question where I could actually bring out the policy and deal with it, which is a question I got from the Leader of Opposition on these issues. I actually have also had a one-on-one with the Leader of the Opposition post that question on some of these issues. So if the member really wants that key detail, I'd be very happy to give it to her if she asks me in writing on that. I know that there's 1 question in writing already on it. But I will say to you what I can say that the 2023 policy was definitely not used for the previous Minister Fritz, because I fired him long before 2023.
Thank you very much. Honourable Lekker, your first follow-up.
Thank you. You may not have answered on the 2 who are still in your administration, Graham Paulse and Farrell Payne, but be that as it may, I would like to know, in light of your government's harassment policy, commitment to treating allegations seriously and with sensitivity, why were those reports of investigations into these cases, including those conducted by Advocate Jen Williams, were not shared with the victims were not shared with the victims?
Honourable Premier, before you respond to that question, because that is a question on the written question paper that's current, because I checked the oral question, the draft question paper before they distributed. It is my job to check that. So it is on the oral question, the written question for the draft paper. I'm going to take advice from the table staff before you respond to that question. So if you just give me a moment, if the table staff can just advise me, because it is as asked on the written question paper. No, it's the question, honourable members. I'm trying to apply the rules in the interest of transparency and consistency. There is a draft written question paper out with exactly that question already on the question paper. So I need to establish if I can allow the same question in the House for oral reply that's already on the written. Thank you very much, honourable members. Honourable Leader of the Opposition, can I confirm that there in fact is such a question in your name on the written draft question paper as distributed to all members?
Yes, there is.
Thank you very much, honourable member. In that case, there is a question on the written question paper, and therefore, honourable Premier, you will not respond to that question posed. Honourable Lecker, in the interest of transparency and consistency, I will give you an opportunity to pose a different follow-up question. Honourable Lecker, honourable side, is that a point of order?
You see, that particular question is a question for written reply, and it's differently worded to the manner in which the Honourable Lecker is posing questions. That question was submitted a while ago. I don't think it's correct to suppress the member. Allow the member to ask the question, because the nature of the question is different. It's not exactly the same. Thanks.
Honourable side, I've already ruled, but just in the interest of moving forward, honourable members, I will just give some context to that ruling. The context and the content of the question posed by the Honourable Lecker to the Premier is exactly the same content and context as per the question on the written paper. In the interest of not suppressing you, Honourable Lecker, I'm going to allow you an opportunity to ask a different follow-up question to the initial question posed.
Mandibulele, considering the fact that the two perpetrators, Farrell Payne and Paulson, are still in the workplace environment, how will
Honourable Lecker, please speak to me. Honourable Lecker, speak to me.
Listening is a skill, and this man must not disrespect me just because he's a man and I'm a woman.
Honourable Lecker, please speak to me. Order members, there's a member on the floor.
It starts from here on harassment, what the Premier is just doing now. Here in the House, he's not respecting the very same policy of his own government. And I refuse to be treated as a victim by him.
Honourable member, can you please pose your question?
Thank you. Considering that the two people that I have mentioned are still in the workplace while the victims are at home, what is this government doing in protecting the victims in the WCPP or in government?
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much. My answer to that question is what she has just asked me is untruthful.
Honourable Lecker, your final opportunity. Order members. Honourable Lecker, it's on.
What is it that is untruth about what I have asked from this information, because it needs to share the information? Thank you.
Honourable Premier.
So there are two different cases here. The first case, as was said in this House in the last question, is being dealt with in the courts as well as by the CCMA. They have been investigated within the department by the accounting officer, the head of department, whose responsibility it is to deal with that, make a decision on whether they should be suspended or not, whether a person should stay in the job or not, or whether they should be at home, which they're not at home. The first question. So that part is untrue. The second question is about a different individual in this government. It was investigated in 2011, and that case, the investigation, said that there was not sufficient evidence, and it was thrown out. The second time, I then asked for an independent investigation, although it was already closed. I asked for a second independent investigation, which was done outside, and it gets dealt with in the question that has been sent to me by the Honourable Said. And in that case, of course, I don't want to put the findings here on the table, but that case is now being asked for the detail. The detail has gone and been redacted by the outside investigator. There's been an objection to it. It's got 90 days, I think, and it is in process. And the person is not at home.
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier. Honourable Member, that brings us to the end of that question. I recognise Honourable Brinkhuis.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, I'm covered for today. Apologies for my voice. I'm not in the best of health. I've got a bit of a flu, and I will let my opportunities stand over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Brinkhuis. I recognise the Honourable Bosman.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, through you to the Premier. Premier, are you able to perhaps tell the House how will the establishment of the Energy and Water Council contribute to water security for the people of the Western Cape?
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much to the Honourable Bosman for the question. So I think, as this House knows, around 2 years ago I established an Energy Council because the date that we were given was that 2023 was going to be worse when it comes to load shedding than ever before. And so this was in 2022. We established the Energy Council. That council pulled together universities, municipalities, outside investors, the World Bank, national government. It pulled together all of these partners to deal with this crisis where we didn't have sufficient energy in our system. And the Energy Council then established the target of 5,700 megawatts of power. We had programs within government in our hospitals to make sure that they could keep the lights on in our hospitals during load shedding. In our schools, we had programs. We supported local authorities with funding for generation systems to keep sewerage going and to keep pump stations going, etc., etc. And I think that is fairly common knowledge that that's what this Energy Council was set out for. At the start of this term, specifically driven by Minister Bradell saying that we understand climate change is affecting us more and more, and that the suggestion was that I do exactly the same with water as I did with energy, and we set up a water council, that it becomes a priority. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago on water specifically. That then led to the decision that we are going to formalize the council and join the two together. And so we've already had our first meeting of the Water and Energy Council. That took place last week. And of course, those water plans are now being established in the similar way to the establishment of the plans that were put in place around the Energy Council and energy security, ending load shedding, and creating a competitive private sector investment environment so that we could actually get sufficient energy for growth and jobs, but also to mitigate the risk. Exactly the same or similar kinds of programs. We already have a 15-year water plan, but what does that mean for every municipality? What does it mean for national government? What does it mean for our regions? What does it mean for the current water system at a dam level from national? What does it mean from municipalities' points of view and reticulation? And how do we do the assessment as to where the highest risks are? That work is happening. And so this new platform, which is called the Energy and Water Council, then gets feedback every month where it gets divided into two. There are some commonalities with ministers across the two councils, but of course the universities or the private sector or the municipalities using those different areas of focus will come in and out of the council as needed, along with national government, who we've asked to partner with us in both of these councils. And so, of course, energy is way ahead. Water will now be catching up, and we'll be happy to, once those plans are in place, to report back to this House of how those plans are developing and what those targets are, because we know that with climate change, just as we've had more rain than we've had since we've been measuring rain in such a short period of time, within a few years it could be exactly the opposite, as we have experienced before with Day Zero. So that is the importance of the water component added to the council.
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier. Honourable Bosman, your first follow-up.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Through you to the Premier, how will the Energy and Water Council affect water policy from the Western Cape for the Western Cape government, as well as municipalities within the province?
Yes.
Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much, Speaker. So, as I said in the first part of the question or answer, that we already have a 15-year water plan, but we will not necessarily, it could lead to provincial policy, and then provincial policy that could also lead to provincial legislation. Of course, we can't develop policy for national or local government, but what we can do is develop frameworks that will then, alongside those individual municipalities, perhaps then develop their own. Unless we are looking at umbrella type policy, for example, on water harvesting or water. At the moment, we've got rules which doesn't let water be shared between catchment areas. There could be a change there, but that would come out of the work that we are developing. And I think some of the lessons that we learned at the last time we had that severe drought, for example, when the Overberg region helped the city with making sure some of the water from their system could transfer over. But of course, that was a special program specifically just for that drought. But what could happen is you could actually end up with a new system where we actually do allow water to flow. But that will come through that development of policy from the council itself.
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier. Honourable Bosman, your second follow-up.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and again through you, Honourable Speaker, to the Premier. Premier, are you perhaps able to elaborate more on the types of activities that this council will engage, and maybe also emphasising on the participation of citizens as well?
So first of all, I think once we've done the risk analysis like we did with energy, we will then create an environment where we will highlight and identify where those risks are. And remember, in water, it's a little bit different to energy supply, because energy supply is one single component broken down into different mechanisms of supplying that energy. So it could be green and renewable. It could be something new like gas coming in. In this case, water is much broader. So water would then deal at a local government level with, for example, sewage and sewage systems. That in turn could also deal with reuse of water, which is already happening, for example, in the city. One of the biggest reuse programs on the continent being invested in the city at the moment. And that could be replicated, sharing best practice with other municipalities in the sewage space. The other would be on water collection, the water management system, the supply system. We know how many million litres of water we need per person per year, and how that population increase is determining whether we've got sufficient water. And at the moment, it looks like that is not going to be sufficient. But we'll have to also establish, have we got enough storage capacity? Can we build more, or do we need new systems like using more groundwater with recharge into the groundwater system? So it is almost more complex, but we will also apply similar kind of processes with enabling municipalities looking at potential funding sources. At municipal level, it does make it much easier because even borrowing of money at municipal level, they have got a revenue model, which is not the same in a provincial context. We don't have the revenue model, so it'd have to be different kind of funding and borrowing systems, blended finance, for example, and then also linking through to national government, which also has a different environment and context, and specifically big bulk water, which links through to both levels of government. But that's gonna come and will be developed in the plan as we move forward.
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier. Honourable Members, that brings us to the end of questions to the Premier without notice. We move on to statements by members in terms of Rule 145, and I recognise the Democratic Alliance. The Democratic Alliance.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. My apologies. Honourable Speaker, the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape welcomes the sentencing of Yamkela Jacobs for his involvement in the 2017 supermarket robbery in Parow, where over 4 million rand intended for South African Social Security Agency SASSA beneficiaries was stolen. This crime is an attack on the systems meant to protect our vulnerable communities. To put this into perspective, the 4 million rand stolen could have been providing social relief of distress grants to approximately 10,810 individuals in the Western Cape. This robbery, alongside the alarming reality that SASSA has lost more than R500 million over the past 10 years due to 1,174 people unduly benefiting from social grants through fraud and corruption, highlights the magnitude of abuse within the system. These acts of fraud and corruption threaten the integrity of our social support mechanisms meant to serve those in need. The Khayelitsha Magistrates Court has sentenced Jacobs to 12 years imprisonment for robbery with aggravating circumstances, with 4 years suspended, along with another 12 years for counts 2 to 13. He was also declared unfit to possess a firearm and will serve 8 years in total. Honourable Speaker, while the sentencing is a step towards justice, we urge the authorities to prioritise charges against the remaining accused to ensure swift and complete justice. Speaker, the DA remains committed to safeguarding the systems designed to support the most vulnerable. Criminal acts that undermine these social safety nets will not be tolerated. We owe it to our elderly, disabled and vulnerable residents to ensure that these vital systems are protected. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I recognise the ANC.
Honourable Speaker and the distinguished guests, I stand before this august House to highlight the severe underfunding and neglect of the Office of the Children's Commissioner by the DA-led Western Cape Government. This is a critical issue that demands our immediate attention. On the 23rd of August 2024, the Children's Commissioner presented to the Premier Standing Committee outlining profound challenges that hamper the office's ability to fulfill its mandate. These challenges include severe funding shortages, inadequate staffing, and systematic bureaucratic hurdles. Currently, the office operates with only 3 permanent staff and 2 contract workers, far below the approved staffing complement of 12. This glaring deficit severely impairs the office's capacity to address critical issues facing our children. Despite numerous appeals from the Children's Commissioner for a permanent office and additional resources, these requests have been met with indifference. The office has been allocated only 5 million in core funding, an amount grossly inadequate compared to other departmental units. There was supposed to be a director at level 13, but due to insufficient funds, the office had to prioritize frontline staff over critical positions. It is evident that the DA-led administration is not committed to strengthening the institution of Children's Commissioner. This neglect undermines our ability to advocate for and protect our vulnerable citizens, our children. We call on the provincial government to rectify this injustice by providing adequate resources and funding to the Office of the Children's Commissioner. Our children deserve a government that prioritizes their rights and well-being. It is time for us to invest in their future and ensure that
Honourable
the
Lecker, your
office,
time has expired. Please conclude.
that the Office of the Children's Commissioner can effectively serve its crucial role and be taken
Thank
and be
you very
treated
much,
like
Honourable.
Chapter 9 institutions.
Thank you very much, Honourable Lecker. I recognize the Patriotic Alliance.
Thank you, Speaker. Former MICO member for the Human Settlements Department, Malusi Boy, allegedly received 2.5 million rand in cash and Rolex watches from the 28 gang boss Ralph Stanfield and has appeared in court yesterday alongside 9 accused for tender fraud to the tune of 850 million rand. What measures will the city take to prevent this kind of tender irregularities, because innocent people have lost their lives in the scope of the employment because underworld kingpins have managed to get the tenders awarded to them?
Thank you very much. I recognize the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Recently, the Department of Home Affairs has announced the Trusted Tour Operator Scheme, an innovative group visa system designed to process permits for mass travellers from China and India. Honourable Speaker, tourism is a cornerstone of the Western Cape economy. The Minister of Home Affairs stated that a 10% increase in tourism could result in annual economic growth of 0.6%, leading to additional jobs. Most travellers from Europe and Asian countries prefer to travel in large groups, and adapting the visa system will ensure that the Western Cape capitalizes on this market. The City of Cape Town has been advocating for visa reform due to its great potential to grow and support the tourism economy. This Trusted Tour Operator Scheme, together with the City of Cape Town's 5-point tourism program, which is focusing on expanding flight routes, boosting cruise tourism, and promoting Cape Town as a prime conferencing destination, are crucial for tourism. These 5-point tourism strategies have enabled the City of Cape Town to tap into available global tourist market. It is worth noting that this scheme was created in collaboration with the Department of Tourism, the Presidency, and Operation Vulindlela, GNU in action. The report also noted that at the moment, Indian tourists account for only 3.9% for all international visitors to South Africa, and China for only 1.8%. It is hoped that the Western Cape will attract most of these tourists, which augurs well for growth, job growth support, and will definitely support both the formal and informal business sectors in tourism, helping the province to realize a 1 trillion economy by 2035. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Economic Freedom Fighters.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the EFF would like to take this opportunity to condemn PRASA's intentions to appeal a Western Cape High Court ruling which recently ordered them to return the belongings of homeless people. The ruling follows the decision of PRASA to use its contracted security guards to illegally evict homeless people residing along Marine Drive on foreshore on both the 19th and 22nd of August. The homeless people have been residing in the area for more than 10 years when security guards from PRASA decided to illegally evict them and confiscate their belongings. Speaker, Section 26 of the South African Constitution makes it unlawful to evict someone from what was their home without a court order, which shall be granted after the court has which shall only be granted after the court has taken all consideration into account, including the personal circumstances of the person. The recent High Court ruling ordered PRASA to return homeless people their belongings or build in temporary habitable dwellings that offered shelter, privacy. However, instead of PRASA easing the pain, Speaker, and the hardship of poor by complying with the court order, the agency elected a hard route, which will not only delay the implementation of the order, but also subject these poor people to endless suffering. Speaker, in conclusion, the EFF will not tolerate the unbecoming conduct from the state where dignities of homeless people are trampled over due to the fact that they are poor and helpless. We all have a part to play in assisting them to make sure their lives improve and they become well integrated into society, as well as making sure that they enjoy the full benefit that the state has to offer.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I recognize the NCC.
Speaker. Sorry. Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the NCC rises with concerns in this House, noting the arrest in the court appearance of the 9 officials from the City of Cape Town and the previous MICO member for Human Settlements, Osnume Namani. The allegations of corruption and extortion and others in the human settlement environment is exactly what the NCC has been advocating. Investigate and bring the perpetrators to book. Speaker, some applicants are on the waiting list for more than 30 years, and people of Beacon Valley are still waiting for their houses. But Speaker, many of these people has passed away as forgotten people waiting to stay in a property, while corruption in the City of Cape Town can easily shipwreck the dreams and hopes of a community. Speaker, we've seen it happening many times. Now, can the Minister of Local Government please do some proper oversight on the City of Cape Town municipality before the entire civic centre, including the mayor, gets arrested? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I recognize the ANC.
Honourable Speaker, esteemed members and distinguished guests, today as we commemorate the death of Steve Biko, we honour a courageous leader whose life was a testament to the enduring struggle for justice, equality and empowerment. Biko's brutal death at the hands of apartheid security forces in 1977 remains a stark reminder of the sacrifices made for freedom and the relentless pursuit of dignity for all South Africans. Steve Biko's vision of black consciousness was not merely a political ideology, but a clarion call to awaken the collective consciousness of a people oppressed and marginalized. His belief in the power of self-awareness and self-reliance was a challenge to the systemic injustice of his time. 47 years later, we must be seized with the reality exposed today in today's debate of the situation of the black child's right to education, when their vulnerability is weaponized in a battle by a government who wants to prove to national government their power or what they claim is to be their fair share. As we reflect in Biko's legacy, we must confront this harsh reality to the values that he championed under this threat. The threat of neoliberal policies that have increasingly shaped our governance and economic policies that led to decisions that prioritize budgetary constraints over the fundamental right to quality of education. As we remember Biko today, let us recommit ourselves to his vision. Let us unite under his banner of black consciousness and black economic empowerment and push back against neoliberal tendencies that seek to dismantle the very foundation of equality and opportunity. We must advocate for policies that invest in the future, ensuring that every child in the Western Cape received quality education regardless of their socio-economic status and regardless of the color of their skin. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Nkondlo. I recognize the DA.
Honourable Speaker, I would like the House to note that the Memorandum of Understanding signed on 30 August between the three spheres of government presents a huge opportunity to the people of the Western Cape. It's an opportunity to unlock new resources and ideas and to create a new culture of positivity and shared success in the war against crime. If implemented in the true spirit of a shared vision, the MOU presents a real roadmap for communities to create hope where nothing but despair previously existed. In a time in which criminals are becoming ever more organized and brazen, we cannot let our law enforcement entities to labor individually. The time is now to form a true community which can work together to take the fight to criminals. It's of historic importance for this very reason that this MOU cannot become an empty gesture by politicians, nor can it become an ideologically motivated excuse for further centralization according to a preset and outdated agenda. For years, we have seen what happens when an overly centralized and archaic approach to service delivery is taken, not just in policing, but in governance at large. The people of our province are tired of empty provinces. It's time for real solutions to safety to be tried and expanded by taking policing to the citizenry of the province in the spirit of real participative democracy. It is clear that change is needed throughout our country, so let's not centralize inefficiency and make community safety less accountable. Let's rather get devolved, people-centered solutions, properly resources by an unbiased new government of national unity, and make the people who elected us to this House proud of their decision.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Freedom Front Plus.
Honourable Speaker, the Freedom Front Plus notes his concern about a former municipal office bearer, public office bearer who once held a maker position in the city of Cape Town and was a member of the Democratic Alliance. He has also been arrested by the South African police within this week, and it is alleged that he had links to the organized gangs and was involved in fraud and corruption.
Remember, there's a member on the floor. Order. Honourable
Speaker.
Honourable member, my apologies.
May I
Order.
continue, Speaker?
Members. Honourable Marie, you may continue.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, this further led to cancellations and delays of many planned housing projects due to extortion. Crime of this nature delays the provision of adequate housing and infrastructure. It prolongs the suffering of the homeless and the effective delivery of services to our citizens, among other negative effects. We call on every public servant, public office bearers, including officials who work in any state department or municipality, to either vacate their positions if they are involved in any criminal or illegal activities, or to hand themselves over to the police. The constant reports of corruption committed by public office bearers and corrupt politicians are damaging our people's trust in the state, who are supposed to carry the highest position of honor, dignity, integrity as honorable members of society. The Freedom Front Plus further commends the South African police for their hard work in arresting these perpetrators. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize Al-Jamar.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, no statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The ACDP. Good.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the Supreme Court's judgment on the sale and use of the Tafelberg site in Sea Point has essentially allowed for the city and the province's attempts at addressing spatial injustice to continue to go unaddressed and exist in name only. The intended use of the site for developing affordable housing units has once again been delayed by the provincial government. The Appeals Court appears to have been convinced by an array of provincial and municipal policies to address apartheid planning without considering whether the DA-led province or Metro intended to implement them. Although the province and Metro have wielded past initiatives, such as the 2010 Inner City Regeneration Plan and the Transport and Development Authority tabled in 2013 as evidence of their supposed efforts at addressing segregation and housing injustices, none of these have been implemented. Now the Premier has doubled down on his failure to honour his 2019 commitment of settling the Tafelberg dispute and making the property available for affordable housing. The province has undoubtedly failed the working class families of Sea Point, unabashedly turning a blind eye to the housing crisis that the Tafelberg site could have contributed to resolving. The multitude of promises and initiatives by the Western Cape government have not been followed through nor implemented. The housing development of the Tafelberg site would have been a crucial leap toward the creation of a socially integrated Cape Town. It could have allowed the working class to become part of an otherwise segregationist city. Redressing the structural plight of working class families in the historically white and affluent area that is Sea Point is the constitutional responsibility of the Premier and the constitutional rights of his constituents. The judgment of the Appeals Court has not absolved this government of that responsibility, and we call on the Premier to honour his 2019 commitment and his moral and legal obligations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Hayden. I recognize the DA.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Extortion is severely disrupting critical infrastructure projects across the Western Cape, delaying progress and negatively impacting our communities. A recent DA parliamentary question revealed that 6 Western Cape government construction sites valued at over 390 million have been targeted, with projects mostly in the housing and education is facing delays of up to 3 years. These criminal acts not only hinder essential services, but also erode public trust. Yet, while the DA takes decisive action against the wrongdoing, such as in the case of the former councillor Malusi Boy, who now faces serious charges of colluding with gang members to unlawfully award tenders worth 850 million rand, the ANC stands idle as these criminal acts unfold. The DA, by contrast, acts
Order,
swiftly
members.
and decisively to ensure accountability within government. To combat these threats of extortion, the Department of Infrastructure has implemented a robust prevention plan in close collaboration with ward councillors, project steering committees, and other local stakeholders. This proactive approach has already begun to yield positive results, enhancing security, streamlining reporting, and improving oversight of the affected areas. Honourable Speaker, extortion and corruption are a direct assault on the well-being of our communities.
Order.
The Democratic Alliance fully supports the Western Cape Government's effort to combat these crimes, ensuring that essential services are being delivered without further delay.
Order.
Thank you very much.
Honourable members. Honourable members, that brings us to the end of member statements. In terms of Rule 145, subsection 6, I now give one or more members of the executive present an opportunity to respond to any member statement for not more than 5 minutes collectively, if they so wish. I recognize. Honourable members, if you want to continue with your interaction across the floor, I'm going to allow you to do so, but I'm not going to compete with you. Honourable Minister, Minister Mania.
Thank you, Speaker. Steve Biko would have been shocked at the impact of the national fiscal emergency on education, and he would have joined our fight for teachers, and he would have joined our fight to make basic education a priority in South Africa. And I would strongly suggest that the honourable member does the same.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Are there any further inputs from members of the executive, if they so wish? No further inputs, and that's the end of members' statements. Honourable members, we have now moved on, and we now deal with motions, notices of motions in terms of Rule 151. In terms of Rule 151, all notices of motions by members are required to be delivered to the Secretary for placing it on the order paper. Honourable members, these motions have been duly submitted and published on the order paper below the line. And I'll move on to motions without notice in terms of Rule 150. I would like to inform you that in terms of the standing Rule 150, pertaining to motions without notices, condolences and congratulatory, which were submitted to the Programming Authority prior to this plenary on the 10th of September 2024. Members are also reminded that motions without notice pertaining to congratulatory and condolences will not be allowed in this sitting that have not been processed by the Programming Authority. I have been informed that in the Programming Authority meeting of the 10th of September 2024, political parties did submit the names of honourable members in the desired order of speaking and who had wished to move a motion without notice in the sitting of the House. I will therefore, just for the noting and for the purposes of the minutes, call out the honourable members whose names have accordingly been submitted and approved. The following members' motions have been approved by the Programming Authority as follows. Honourable W. F. Kaiser Philander, Honorable F. Kamfer, Honorable P.Z. Lekker, and Honorable R. Winvogel. Honorable members, I now put the motions duly submitted and approved by the Programming Authority to the House. Are there any objections? No objections. Agreed to. Honorable members, these motions will appear in the minutes of the proceedings and in Hansard in each individual member's name as if the member had read them out aloud. I will now afford the opportunity to members to move motions without notice as per Standing Rule 150, subsection 2, subsection D. This could also include motions without notices that were not approved in the Programming Authority meeting. Members, I wish to remind you that 30 minutes as per Standing Rule 150, subsection 2, subsection D will start now. I recognize the Honourable Jacobs.
Here's my podium. I like to move my
Can
hands.
the table staff please stop the clock?
Yeah, I like to move my hands when I speak. Freedom of movement. Freedom of movement.
Order members, Honourable Jacobs, your time starts now.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I move without notice that this House notes as a matter of urgent concerns regarding the recent arrest and subsequent court appearance of the officials from the City of Cape Town. The allegations in question pertain to corruption, extortion, and other serious misconduct within the human settlement sector. Speaker, the presence of corruption within these departments poses a significant threat to the realization of the community's housing aspirations and the integrity of the public service. As the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, we must denounce such actions and express our commitment to addressing and rectifying these issues to safeguard the interests and hopes of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable members, are there any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objections. Agreed to. I recognize the Honourable Brinkhuis.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I'm covered with this motion without notice. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. I then move on to Honourable Kasim. Honourable members, just can you please stop the clock? So can I just explain? So motions without notices have been agreed by the Programming Authority, and those that have not been agreed comes to the House. So one of the motions that was not agreed upon at the Programming Authority is those that is now being delivered in the House for the House to make a decision on them. Honourable Brinkhuis intended to move a motion. He is not moving that motion, and for that reason, that motion is not being entertained, and I move on. Honourable Kasim. Honourable Kasim. Honourable members, Honourable Kasim is online, so I'm just going to give the Honourable member an opportunity. Honourable Kasim. In the interest of time, I'm moving on. I recognize the Honourable Lita Kong.
Thank you, Samlomo. I move without notice for the House indlu iqaphele oku umlilo oqhume esiyanyanzela eDanuni ekuseni ngolwesihlanu umhla wesithandathu kuSeptemba imikhukhu engama-25 ithe yangqunqa apho ishiye abantu abangama-47 bengenamakhaya. Ubuhlungu lixhoba elikhubazekileyo elingumama elithe lahlangulwa ngunyana walo onama-23 eminyaka. Zonke impepha zesazisi zintunyekwe ngumlilo. Olu sapho lukwiphulo lokwakha kwakhona kodwa umama uxhomekeke kwimali yendodla. I-EFF icala wonke umntu norhulumente angenelele ngendawo yokuhlala loxa lo mama esalinde indlu elungiselelwe abakhubazekileyo, ngoba ayivakali ncam into yoba abantu abangoomama kakhulukazi abakhubazekileyo bangathathelwa ngqalelo kulwabiwo lwezindlu. I so move, Somlomo. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, are there any objection to the motion being moved without notice? There is an objection and the motion will be printed on the order paper. I recognise Honourable Winvogel.
Thank you, Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes that September is the National Suicide Prevention Month, a critical time to raise awareness about mental health issues and the urgent need for effective suicide prevention strategy. Notes further with concern the significant increase in mental health challenges exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic has led to a rise in the prevalence of psychiatric illnesses and suicide rates in the Western Cape. Acknowledge the alarming statistics that approximately 280,000 suicide attempts occur annually in South Africa, highlighting a silent crisis that demands immediate attention and action, and calls upon the Western Cape government to implement and enhance mental health support programs focusing on prevention and early intervention strategies. I so move.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, are there any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objections. Agreed to. Honourable Gainsu.
I move without notice that the House notes and welcomes the recent arrest of Malusi Boy, former member of the City of Cape Town Human Settlement Mineral Committee, representing the New Liberal Democratic Alliance, and his co-accused. I appreciate that the arrest is a crucial development in the ongoing effort to address corruption and extortion within our government institutions. Acknowledges that the details emerging from the ongoing case against Malusi Boy reveal significant evidence suggesting that the Democratic Alliance has played a role in facilitating and abetting extortionist activities in the Western Cape. Calls for a comprehensive investigation to the extent of the DA's involvement in the corrupt activity associated with the Boy case. This includes examining any potential complicity or negligence on the part of the DA officials and ensuring that appropriate measures are taken to hold accountable all those involved. Commend the South African Police Service for their tireless and effective work in dismantling corrupt networks and criminal enterprises that have compromised public trust, and reaffirm this August House commitment to upholding principles of transparency, integrity, and accountability in public office. I so move.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, are there any objection to the motion being moved without notice? There is an objection and the motion will be printed on the order paper. Order, members, there's no need for debate. Order. Honourable Members. Honourable Members, there's no need to... Well, members, there's 30 minutes allocated for motions without notice as per the standing rule, and until you work with me, the clock is ticking. There was an objection to that motion, and the motion will be printed on the order paper, and you will have an opportunity when your time comes to debate it, if you so wish. But now is not the time. Honourable Member, I recognise you. You can continue.
Thanks, Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes Premier Island Winnie's expenditure of more than 1 billion on a safety plan that has proven to be ineffective. Notes further that despite this substantial investment, violence continues to surge, particularly in poor working class communities, and the failure to achieve tangible results raises serious concerns about the management, execution, and accountability of this initiative. Notes further that the recent surge in violence from September the 2nd to the 8th, resulting in 22 deaths and 29 injuries, highlights the urgent need for a thorough review to determine why the plan has failed to deliver the promised improvements in community safety. Demands transparency regarding the allocation and utilization of the Western Cape Safety Plan, which includes summoning J.P. Smith Mayor member for safety in the city of Cape Town to appear before the committee to account about the implementation of the safety plan, calls on Premier Windy to go back to the drawing board, review the current implementation plan, and devise a new strategy within the context of the cooperative agreement.
Order, members.
Broad framework. Such must be done to address the persistent violence and insecurity plaguing our communities, and further calls for an independent impact evaluation of the Western Cape Safety Plan to assess its effectiveness and to provide comprehensive analysis of its shortcomings, and calls on the Premier to ensure that there is a relationship between safety plan measures and socio-economic development as a basis to address the persisting chronic underdevelopment in the Western Cape. I so move. Neoliberals will heckle.
Thank you very much, honourable members. Honourable members, are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There is an objection, and that the motion will be printed on the order paper. Honourable members, I don't understand why there's interjections and heckling, because you have an opportunity to object, and then the objection will be printed on the order paper. Honourable members, I now recognize the Honourable Lecker.
It's going to be Lecker.
That the House expresses its deepest shock and outrage at the tragic shooting that occurred at the barbershop in Browns Farm, Philippi yesterday, which resulted in multiple injuries and fatalities, condemns in the strongest possible terms the violence that continues to plague our poor working class communities in the Western Cape, acknowledges that such acts of violence not only cause immense suffering to families, but also instill fear within the community, undermining the safety and security that every resident deserves, and are a grave reminder of the urgent need for effective crime prevention measures in our communities. Calls upon the South African Police Services to expedite their investigation into this shooting, to identify and apprehend the perpetrators of this heinous crime, and conveys condolences to the families of the deceased.
Honourable members, I don't know how to I don't know what to say anymore. No, I think the problem is that you must do your conversations over a cup of coffee or tea in the members' dining room, not on the chamber's floor. Honourable members, are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objections. Agreed to. I recognize the Honourable Windvogel.
Thank you, Speaker. I move without notice that the House note with concern the recent confirmation of the second case of monkeypox in the Western Cape involving a 38-year-old male patient who sought medical attention at a private practice in Cape Town. Note further that this case raises significant public health concerns, particularly as the patient has no recent history of international travel or contact with a suspected or confirmed monkeypox case, suggesting possible local transmissions of the virus. We commend the Department of Health and Wellness for their swift response in activating the outbreak response team and initiating contact tracing and monitoring activities. Urges all identified and suspected contacts to cooperate fully with the health officials during contact tracing process to prevent further transmissions of this disease, and calls on the provincial government to prioritize public awareness campaigns to educate the community about the symptoms, transmission and prevention of monkeypox. I so move.
Thank you very much, Honourable Van Vogel. Honourable members, are there any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection. Agreed to. I recognise the Honourable Van Vogel.
Thank you, Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes with pride the recent signing of the Basic Education Amendment Bill into law by the President Cyril Ramaphosa. Notes further and acknowledge that the signing of this transformative piece of legislation marks a milestone in our ongoing effort to address and resolve the challenges facing our education system. Recognize that the Bella Bill represents a substantial step forward in transforming our education sector as it aims to strengthen administration and governance, make grade R the new compulsory starting aids, and enhance oversight of languages and admissions policies, all of which are pivotal in addressing long-standing educational challenges. Notes further and commends the National Minister of Basic Education for unwavering commitment to the full implementation of the bill if signed into law. Calls for the swift and effective implementation of the Bella Bill to ensure that its objectives are met and that all communities, especially those in underserved areas, benefit from the reforms, and reaffirms this August House commitment to improving the quality of education in South Africa and to supporting legislative measures that contribute to an inclusive, equitable and effective education system. I so move.
Thank you very much, Honourable. Order, members. Thank you, Honourable Van Vogel. Honourable Minister, is that a point of order? And what is your point of order?
Speaker, my point of order is that the member is misleading the House. The President, Cyril Ramaphosa, has not signed the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill. And the first sentence of the member's motion says that the signing of the Bella Bill into law, into an act, and it is not correct.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable members, order. Honourable members. Honourable members, Honourable Member, that is not a point of order. You have an opportunity to object. It's not for the chair to order, members. It's not for the chair to adjudicate on the content or the input that's being delivered by a member. The Honourable Minister, I'm addressing your point of order, but you are conversing across the floor. So that is not a point of order. It's not for the chair to adjudicate on the content of a member. You haven't. The part of the process is to object to the motion being moved without notice, and you will have an opportunity once I put it to the House. Honourable Nkondlo, is that a new point of order? Thank you very much. Honourable members, I will now put the motion. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There is an objection and the motion will be printed on the order paper. Honourable members, that brings us to the end of motions without notice.
Order, members. During the debate on the 5th of September 2024, points of order were raised by members concerning interjections made by the Honourable Van Vogel. At the time, I undertook to consult Hansard and revert back to the House with a ruling if necessary. Honourable Van Vogel, are you able to stand? I have now had the opportunity to consult the transcript and wish to rule as follows. The Honourable Van Vogel, in an interjection, said to the Honourable Minister Mackenzie, who was speaking at the time, "You lie." Honourable Van Vogel, that is unparliamentary language, and the Honourable Van Vogel must withdraw the remarks unconditionally. I now give the floor to the Honourable Van Vogel.
If so, Speaker, I withdraw.
Honorable Van Vogel, the word unconditionally is very clear in our dictionary. I require you to withdraw unconditionally.
The problem is I can't remember. So now I must withdraw things I don't know. So that's why I'm saying so, Speaker.
I wouldn't want to have a debate. I would humbly request that you withdraw, as it is unparliamentary, and I will definitely make the time to take you through the Hansard as well.
I withdraw, if so. I withdraw.
Members, the Honourable Van Vogel has withdrawn the remark made during the 5th of September, indicating that Minister Mackenzie has lied. Honourable members, that concludes the business of this day. The Secretary will now end the meeting and all members will be exited from the sitting. The House is adjourned.